Hello. Hello
Bum,
there.
ba-da-bum,
Sorry,
bum,
we're a little late.
bum,
We were
bum,
sound checking.
bum, bum, bum,
Do,
bum.
do, 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 do. Okay, let's be serious because moment of silence for Nemec.
Oh.
Yeah. Aww.
Like also the whole crew, but Nemec.
Poor guy.
Oh.
Yeah, they really pulled a Rogue One here, and killed
Just-
most of the team off. So
Just
pretty intense.
everyone's gone. Spoiler alert if you're watching
Yeah.
this.
I
Having
hope you're not.
seen the episode and just
I
want to
think
hear
it's-
about the music.
It'd probably be, yeah. I wonder if it could even be spoiled at this point. The
Oh.
the internet has long spoiled it.
Sure, yeah.
But, yeah. What an episode.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Whoa, Jinx.
Yeah, right.
It's...
I was so tense the whole episode. I think the first time watching I was like clutching a pillow and I realized like halfway through I was like I don't know. It was such a good episode.
It's awesome, and I love that it. I don't know. How do you guys feel about this in terms of the age of streaming when you go to start a piece of content and you get to know how long it is before you start? How do you guys feel about that in terms of it spoiling like what you're, I don't know, what you're getting yourself into? I guess that's normal to know how long something is, but for me, like, doesn't it kind of like, I don't know. When I saw it said 56 minutes, I was like, whoa, we're in for it tonight, right?
Interesting. It didn't affect me too much because it wasn't so much different than the other episodes that I was like, it's not like 30-minute episodes and then like a 2-hour or something.
Yeah.
So I
Sure.
kind of figured it would be a big episode.
Yeah. Well, for me, I got excited,
Oh yeah, I was really excited too.
I was like, what? Yes, let's bunk. Like, and honestly, this is, I'm finding with this show, I don't know what it is about the show, but I'm not doing the stay up on Wednesday nights and watch it show.
Oh,
deal
really?
anymore. Or I mean Monday, or what is it? Yeah, Monday nights or Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights.
Right?
I'm surprised.
Oh my god. See,
One of those nights.
yeah, I'm not. Well, especially when I saw it was an hour, I was like, I gotta wait until tomorrow. Like I'm not. I can't do it tonight because I actually want to focus on it.
Oh, wow.
Go figure. Yeah. I thought it was, and just like this, it's so funny that this is like the big action piece of this story arc, but it's still like a slow character burn the whole way through, like it's, even though it's like kind of the action heist episode, there still was just so much. It wasn't just bang, 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 there was so much that they really explored, even with that being like the story arc. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and especially for, we've kind of talked about, characters that we know survive in, previous installments of this is a prequel kind of a thing. But they really kind of, I feel like, at least for me, I was really kept guessing throughout this entire episode. I questioned a lot of what was going on. I was waiting for moments to go wrong. I was waiting for some big thing, like, reveal to happen. But it's like, they really kept you guessing. You didn't know what was going to happen next. Like, for example, like the radio, the Imperial radio control guy. I really like him. I'm sad he went too. Very good. But, there's a guy doing his job, in a way.
Of course,
And
Justin likes it.
You didn't think, like, I don't know. Yeah, you just didn't, when you first meet him, you didn't think this would happen. But it's like, again, they're like really focusing on all these coincidental but totally inevitable realistic characters and sequences.
Yeah, there were so many, like I was thinking about the efficiency of the dialogue. And if anyone in chat wants to share like any of their favorite lines or something, please do. But I'm thinking even in that scene with J-Hold, Roboda, Lennart, that family, the Imperial family, there's something in their dialogue that was just so so efficient, right? So like the kid doesn't want to go, right? And the father's, like I should probably pull up the actual transcript, but sort of like, I'm sick. He's always, he's always ill. Like that whole thing was it. I feel like it told so much. Like I feel like we got like a really good short glimpse into that family.
Yeah.
Yes.
You really learned a lot about that family in just that short sequence, and then learning more about that general corporal. What's his rank?
Lieutenant?
Oh, I'm not sure.
The J-Hold.
Oh. Oh yeah, I'm not sure.
But
Commander?
learning
I'm
more
not
about J-Hold too in a weird way, because you see him in this like pompous elitist, kind of imperial presence, and then in his family he's kind of I don't know, it's interesting to see these two sides of characters that we just kind of assume and know are the evil ones, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, we're
for
getting a
them,
lot
this
of
is-
insights to like quote unquote dysfunctional family life amongst high ranking government officials in this show. We get Mon Mothma's, dysfunctional family. You get what's this guy's name
Cyril.
again?
Cyril.
J-Hole.
J-Hole?
Cyril.
J-Hold.
J-Hold.
J-Hold. Gotcha. J-Hold sounds like a martial arts move. Oh man, I got him in a J-Hold.
Yeah, we didn't see Cyril this epised.
No, we
We
didn't.
didn't see our lo-fi sad boy.
Yeah, that's fine. But
I thought like you said, efficient dialogue, and you get to, but still natural somehow. You get to know what you kind of need to know, and you get an insight, but it still sounds like it doesn't sound like those characters. Why would they be talking about that right now?
yeah,
It's
for
not
them,
like
it's like another family event or like another like something for his
Yeah.
job. Like
yeah,
you'll wear that Imperial blouse or whatever. Or yeah.
Yeah, it's reasonable that they would be
Imperial
having that
blouse.
kind of conversation there, but you learn so much about them just by witnessing it. It's not like I grew up around the water. That's my favorite bit of ridiculous exposition and dialogue so far in a Star Wars show.
Yeah, that was pretty classic.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
See, now that one I'll defend. I like that one. Yeah, just like where's his Imperial blouse? I'm not wearing that. Which I think everyone can relate to, like their parents making them wear something that they don't want to wear. You'll do as you're told. Mother, I don't feel well. And so there's this sort of like turning to the other parent thing that we also saw in the Mothma household. And then the father, you'll make an effort tonight if it kills you. He might have a fever. He might feel the back of my hand.
Oof.
I feel like we learned so, like, it could have easily been like, what's his Imperial blouse? Where's his Imperial blouse? I'm not wearing that. Well, this blah, blah, blah is going to be there. And blah, blah, blah. Like, it could have been just like riffing off of the same sort of thing. But instead, it's sort of all these extra little details just so efficiently conveyed. Yeah.
I think my favorite part of that scene is when he says, he's 12, he can dress himself. Now come look at my belt.
Oh, yeah.
Now come dress
That's
me.
good. That's funny.
Yeah.
I thought that was
And I think it like works to show like that there is a kid, a kid of the Empire, just a kid caught in this. Like
Right.
he didn't choose the family that he was born into, but he's part of, he was part of the sort of collateral, right? Or, part of the,
Well, it also
we don't know what happened exactly, but part of the, he was involved in this. He couldn't escape being involved in this heist.
Right. And it goes to, it also, you don't think about that very often, like watching Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, when you're seeing on board like Vader's Star Destroyer or the Death Star or whatever, and you're seeing all these officers, you don't consider like, all these people probably might have families and children and, somewhere. And I'd be curious. I'd love for them to flesh this out later down the line, but it's not so far fetched that some of these kids might grow up and see something like the First Order coming around, and be like, all my parents, got blown up by those rebels in the new government. Maybe I have a vendetta against them. So I mean, just the fact that there's little things that you don't think about, like, oh yeah, children of the Empire. Maybe Huck. I guess Hux probably does have a backstory in the books or something, but Hux is like, to me, is like his father kind of the guy that like you know
Yeah.
like it's like his dad was in the Empire, now he's like so
Yeah.
Children of the Empire sounds like the next young adult Star Wars series.
right.
Kind of a thing.
But there's that song in Moulin Rouge that was like, the children of the revolution,
Yes.
which it probably wasn't originally
How's
a
it go
Moulin
again?
Rouge song.
How's it go?
The children. Never mind.
Oh, man.
Chief says, I don't think we've ever seen an Imperial family before. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really showing them as real people rather than cardboard cutout enemies.
So interesting.
I think you're right on screen, at least.
Maybe not. Maybe in Rebels, did we ever see anybody with a kid or a family or anything like that? I don't think so.
I don't remember. Like, for some reason, I feel like I remember an animated kid. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, but really, yeah, we just kind of have always seen
Maybe
the Imperials as these like individual, faceless group of.
Which
Pretty
makes it like more, of course, which I think was an interesting intentional thing for them to add because, well, we don't know the fate of the child. We don't know what Cinta may have polished off down there. And that's a horrible way to say it. But, David Bowie song. Okay.
yeah, aren't all the songs in Moulin Rouge covers?
Yeah. They're all covers
Yeah,
and
that's, yeah.
mashups.
So it probably wasn't originally from Moulin Rouge. And yeah, thank you. Yeah. I remember I thought your song was originally from Moulin Rouge, and then I had to learn that it was Elton John. Okay, so
You had to learn.
or I mean, I had to learn because I didn't take that piece of information for granted. It wasn't a chore to learn, though. It was just, yeah.
Funny sounding.
Yeah, so it kind of, all of this, I guess, gray area of, well, the good guys in starting a rebellion, they can't all be like pure in every instance, spare every innocent life. It really shows that some nasty things are having to happen.
Oh yeah. They really didn't show them very in a very flattering light in this mission. I feel like they definitely came off very what's the word? Anti-hero kind of deal. Like
You think?
I feel like, especially that scene when they're pointing guns at that family.
Oh my gosh.
What?
I thought they came off really great. Like I
The
thought
rebels did?
Yeah, I was like really impressed by them all this episode.
I mean, I was
Impressed in what way though?
Like because they were doing such horrible things, like out of, like I don't think any of them wanted to be, like I think it was ripping them up. I think all of them are going to be scarred. Well, the ones that didn't die are going to be like really scarred from this. Like they're sort of taking on that emotional, like, okay, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that isn't like, oh, they had to be burdened with killing people, but like they kind of did. And it's not everyone that can do this kind of, it's not everyone that can, Mon Mothma's not going to get her hands dirty with this, right? Not even Luke is really going to do it, right? And
I don't think that's a good thing, Xanthe. I think, you know what I mean? I don't think they come off good by killing essentially like innocent bystanders, like, and putting a gun in a child's face, like, I don't think that's a good thing. I think
I don't think it's a good thing
maybe-
either, but I don't think there's any good or bad, like, way I don't think there's a good way for this to go. You know what I'm saying? What are they going to, like,
Yeah.
if
So
they're
that's what
going
I'm
to fund
saying.
the
I'm
rebellion,
saying,
they're
like,
going to have
I'm
to
saying-
do with this stuff. So
I know,
someone's
but
going to have
that's
to do
what I'm
it.
saying. That's not a very quote unquote flattering, like rosy heroics. Like these aren't like
Of
these
course
aren't
it's
like
not.
Yeah, that's fine.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
to say.
It's not rosy, but it shows me
Yeah.
that like they're willing to do that.
Yeah, I know. So what I'm saying is, is like they don't come off as like textbook good guys in this episode, you know, like they're showing the, you know, the moral ambiguity of kind of doing this type of work, you know, and actually what it like, because in the original Star Wars movies you never see like Luke and Leia like brutally like taking some stormtroopers hostage and being like, "Oh, shoot everybody, hey, you know, like give me the codes," you know, like that doesn't happen in the original Star Wars movies, because they create scenarios in the writing in which they don't have to portray the kind of the hard work that comes with like fighting a war, right?
Yeah.
Like you know, there's like the Imperials are just like faceless bad guys, and anytime you actually see them get killed, it's like either in a very like, you know, they're just like cartoonishly evil, but you don't get to see their family life and a child, like none of, you know what I mean? Like none of the you don't see like one of the TIE fighters like getting into his TIE right after he kissed his family goodbye in Return of the Jedi, you know? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm going to go fight the rebels. And then he like blows out. Like you don't see that in the original Star Wars movie, you know? But you get to see that in this show. So that's what I'm saying. That's not a very flattering light on the rebels and what they actually have to do to win this war and to get victories for the rebellion. And by the way, you kind of don't see that in Rebels either. Like Rebels also doesn't portray it doesn't tackle, even though Rebels is kind of like the scrappy beginning of the rebellion in which you would assume that things like this would need to happen in a war. Like you never see Ezra being like, "Nobody move or I'll shoot everybody." You know what I mean? Like you don't see Ezra Bridger doing that, you know? Like with his lightsaber out, I'll slice anyone's head off. Anyone moves, you know? So again, this is a unique perspective in the Star Wars universe to see rebels acting like this, you know? So Christina's in the chat. I thought she was going to come
Christina, you can feel free to join us on screen if you would like. You have the link. But no pressure, but you have the link if you want to. So I guess I see what you're saying now. I guess it just means from what perspective, it just means flattering, you're thinking of flattering in like a general sense of...
Yeah, good, like good guys, like capital G good guys, you know?
Do you personally, what about you personally? What do you personally?
Well, no, I mean, I know. I like, what do you mean? Like, do I think, I wasn't like, quote unquote, bothered by seeing any of this stuff, because it's like, that's kind of the point of this show, is like showing actually what I think it's very realistic. But it is like a surprising juxtaposition from what we're used to seeing when we're looking at the good guys fighting against the Imperials. Like, so I definitely thought about that. I was like, whoa, this is pretty real, man. You know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's where it boils down to. It's like I don't dislike it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think I would. I would dislike. I think I would dislike it if I saw like. I feel like if it was one of my favorite characters and they made them do that, I would be a little bit like, ooh, I don't want to see like Leia like holding hostages, you know? You know what I mean? Like I want to see Leia like be capital G good, you know? But I don't mind if Cassian Andor.
I kind of feel the opposite.
Really?
Way.
You want to see like Princess Leia like tying people up and, you know, like threatening people with death?
I mean, I don't need to see it, but I think like I think from a storytelling perspective, keeping certain characters purely good is I don't know how to articulate what I'm thinking, but there's something about like keeping certain characters pure and letting other characters do dirty work, where I think it's like, it's almost like protecting the audience is like the audience's fantasy, which I understand that's what Star Wars is, but like also I like seeing the tough choices. Like we even see, we see Obi-Wan make tough choices in Revenge of the Sith, right? Like he has to, you know, almost, you know, he has to kill his brother, you know, it turns out he doesn't actually kill him, but like these are things where we would rather not have to have it come down to those decisions. But I think the moments where it does come down to those decisions really tests the strength of these characters and the things that they believe in. So I wouldn't mind seeing Leia like that. I wouldn't mind it. That's all.
Three-dimensional characters are great. Four-dimensional characters are great.
What are the chords, huh? I don't want to do your dirty work no more. I don't know the chords.
Okay, so
Speaking about chords.
Oh,
That's for Zephyr right there, right? Isn't that Steely Dan? No. Who does dirty
yeah.
work?
Oh,
That's Steely Dan,
I
right?
wanna do dirty work.
Yeah, that's Steely Dan. That's
Yeah.
for Zephyr right there.
So Justin, you were going to say something.
I was just saying chords is a nice segue into.
Oh, because I was
fact
going to talk
that-
about the Imperial motif.
Totally. Go ahead.
So we've been tracking this Imperial's motif for the past few episodes, and it's the I can't remember the normal way it goes. Because in this episode we had like an interesting variation. Okay, go on. Basically, and of course we were talking about how it kind of. Oops. Had that chord progression going, the Vader chord progression. And here we had, a few times the same theme, but it was like with flair. I don't know. Does anyone remember it? I'm sure Jonah knows exactly where it is. But it was like when that family was like sort of walking out, it was like, it reminded me of like the Arabian dance from Nutcracker in its like slurpiness. It was like. Like it was so the dotted holdover was so emphasized, and the sort of like détaché, the sort of like, I don't know, really light second, third, and fourth notes were just so like, and then later on.
Where is this, Xanthe? Where does this happen?
Like about 4:45.
This is like in the beginning of the episode?
Yeah, and then again at 10:45, like.
Yeah.
Like just so like.
It gives it this like kind of pompous feel. Really.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like the
pompous feel.
really rich person version of the Imperial theme. It's like a 4-course, 8-course meal. I don't know, whatever big course meals are.
Super fancy.
That really struck me. It was so. It sounded so distinct to me. Very fancy sounding. Yes. Return of the Jedi would have been very different if we saw the construction workers and their families. No one even considered that before Clerks.
At least, it was first like brought into the mainstream for the Clerks for sure.
Yeah.
I
love that scene so much.
First time I ever heard it.
Then the roofer comes in that scene and then basically tells them that, because like there's a roofer overhearing their nerdy conversation and basically comes in and says like, I'm a roofer and I say no to jobs when I think there's too much danger. So it's on the construction workers for taking that job to begin with.
Oh, that's
jeez.
Anyway.
But we never thought about the Imperial's families. That's
Yeah.
That's
well,
like a whole
yeah.
different thing.
Not on screen.
No, not really, right?
Yeah.
So
The Lost Stars is about Imperials, so do recommend that. Yes. It's about Imperials falling in love. Anyway. James is not impressed. That's fine. Oh my gosh. How could we forget to talk about one of the most exciting things about this episode musically? We got some diegetic music.
Oh, yes.
So you want
we got diegetic
to
music.
Let's
So here
segue
we
into
go.
doing some music examples and stuff.
So I wanna show you something real quick.
Okay.
Well, first of all, does anyone know what percussion instrument belongs to our diegetic friends?
It sounded like, I'm going to say sleigh bells.
Kind of like sleigh bells. They're like ankle bells. Like
a bell tree kind of a thing.
to my ears, they sounded like. The only thing I have even close is these guys. Just this tambourine here. But we got a lot of these ankle bell sounds that you find in lots of types of dance, like Kathak dance from India. You get a lot of that. In West African dance, there's some ankle bells used, but they seem to be using them as kind of like handbells. But it to me, they like sleigh bells have this like big brassy sound to them, you know.
Totally.
But these sounded a little bit thinner and a little bit have a little bit more interesting overtones, which I liked. So I made something for us to listen to.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fun. Okay.
Do you want to? I just texted it to you, Xanthe.
I know. I'm downloading it. So yeah.
And I did my best. You might miss some. I might have missed some harmonies or something.
Uh-oh.
I'll fill in.
But and I definitely didn't want to try to approximate someone's language, so I use vocables instead. So
They're saying like.
Yeah, I
remember,
wasn't
is that
gonna try.
As I start to try.
So I recorded
It's
some
coming right up, everyone.
all Donnie music for you all.
Drum roll, please. Okay. Here we go. That's beautiful. Did it end with that?
Yeah.
Did it end with that shake?
Yeah, they had a little shake thing going on at the end.
Little drone. Nice.
And and so you know what I found interesting about this is that when I kind of did a little transcription, I think the mood of it changes a little bit when it's removed from the score that's underneath it. So what I did was I didn't really try to add the score to it. Actually transcribe the score, but I did add a synth drone that's in kind of the key. The score is kind of in the key of this example to a certain extent. Like it's like a similar. They try to make the diegetic music kind of be in line with a key that kind of makes sense with the score. So I added a synth drone. And you can see how the tone of the whole celebration changes once you've got the drone, which is also coming up any second.
Oh, you texted it to me. I see.
I just texted it.
You're like expecting these examples to come out to somehow appear. Okay. Yes, tech support is on call.
It's on the way.
That's what I'm here for. Yes.
But I'll just tell you. So and it's really interesting. Like the diegetic music actually changes key up a half.
Yeah,
step.
I was gonna. Yeah. So you what you
So
did was
it
the second.
start.
you
I
said
did
you
the first key, which is kind of like in this kind of key of
What's
like.
the timestamp?
I didn't write them down, but the first time we hear that being sung, it's in this key, and then the next time we hear it being sung, it's in here. It's one half step up later on, and I don't know if that happened naturally or if the score I didn't pay attention to what happened to the score. Like, did the score change keys or?
I don't know. I mean, when I was transcribing it, I definitely questioned my tonal hearing for a moment. I was like, wait, didn't it start here? And I was just trying to add the harmonies. I was like, why is this all wrong? And then I realized you said, it changed keys. But I don't think it had anything to do with the score. I thought it just
I don't know.
Like, and naturally as a group of humans, we kind of.
But here's the thing: is that the reason why I asked is because the score is always in a key that fits with the voice. So which means that when we first hear it, the score must have been a half step down, and I don't know. But so did you get that second one, Xanthe?
Yeah. Does anyone have? If anyone knows in chat like a timestamp for the second time, for the first time we hear we hear them singing like 3 times, right?
Something like that.
We
hear it just like they start to sing, and then they add, and then the first motif is like da na na da da da, right? Da na 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 na, and then like da na 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 na, right? That's the first one, and then the next scene it's da na 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 na, da na 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 na. They do that kind of like flat seven thing there.
Right.
So yeah, so here's Xanthe, if you can play that second thing.
I will.
Do you,
I'm just
still
trying to-
downloading?
I'm just trying. No, I'm not. I'm trying to put it in context with something, but I'll just play it first.
Yeah. So here's I added a synth underneath. Sounds sinister almost, right? Yeah, having that synth and the score underneath it, I feel like just kind of really transforms the mood of the whole thing. You know, it's almost like you've got these sinister Imperial presence underneath this kind of beautiful ceremony like these. And I find it interesting because a lot of times when you have these cuts between something that's happening seemingly simultaneously but like unrelated in some way to like some secret mission going on, you think that those storylines will connect somehow, but they never really did. You kind of just get to see them do their ritual, and they get to, you know, pay homage to the natural phenomenon. But I almost in the back of my mind was expecting like something they did to like help the rebels in some way. You know what I mean? Like they set something off, or something within their ritual would end up aiding the rebels like incidentally, right? Yeah. But that didn't happen. They celebrated, you know, in the kind of an isolated celebration there, while all this other sinister stuff and just like drama is happening. So I kind of found it interesting that when you take this music, this diegetic music, and underscore it with the synths and the strings, it kind of has that effect to it. You get this kind of like beautiful vocal harmony and percussion, but then there's this like foreboding synth underneath that's kind of setting the scene of what's happening behind the scenes and within this whole sequence. So it's interesting.
Oh, Christina's joining.
Yay!
Wow, we have a. Okay, we'll get back to that conversation in a second because we're going to welcome Christina to the chat. Everyone, if you, let's see, I'm going to make a space for her. There we go. Except it's not two of me. It's, look, we have two X's and two J's.
Yay.
Yay! Whoa, I didn't even think about that. That's fun.
Or two CH's,
guys.
whatever, same thing. Hey, Christina.
Hi.
Chat, be very
Hi.
excited for Christina.
I didn't realize I had the honor of truly being on video with the three of you when I received my
It's such an
invitation.
honor.
I assumed it was
An invitation to watch us.
yeah. Well, I
watch.
I was going to chat and type, you know, frequently. But yes, thank you.
Well, you're jumping in. Well, you've been watching, so you know we're talking about the like diegetic Aldani music, and its, I guess, interpolation with the score, or like it's stacking, you know, with the score, which is
Yeah.
very interesting effect. And James, what you were saying, how when first of all, chat, tell us what you think of, what you thought of either the Aldani diegetic singing or you know music, the effect that it had on you, and how you felt that perhaps changed over the course of the episode as it sort of like ramped up, because look, hi Christina. For me okay, it kind of ties back in a way to the Return of the Jedi victory celebration versus Yubnub debate.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll explain. Like, Yubnub is, of course, the Ewoks. There's a point to this, I swear. Yup Nup is the Ewoks are singing their song, right? A lot of people are very attached to that song, and it ends with them celebrating. Like we hear the Ewoks celebrating, and then Victory Celebration, in contrast, which is the version that is currently the new, it's what's currently out there, is instead this basically piece of score that ties us into the end credits, and it's sort of classic in terms of in terms of Star Wars scores, in that it first doesn't end with diegetic music, and it's sort of like a more bird's eye view, scoring the scenes, scoring what's being filmed, scoring the mood of all the shots that are happening. Like it's sort of a macro lens, right, musically speaking, and people feel strongly about one or the other. And what this is doing, I'm very I like Victory Celebration. I'm a fan of the score, and I'm not for logical reasons, just because that's what I grew up with and that's what I know. So logically, I'll try to justify what I feel, and that's how I feel. So, but here I think they're doing both in this Andor episode. They're giving us Yub Nub and Victory Celebration at the same time. Obviously, the mood is completely different. It's not like Victory Celebration is heroic. It's like everyone won or whatever. And in this, it's sort of, it's a very tense score, but the score is sort of the glue that is like holding these scenes together. I forgot what it's called. Cutting to different locations or whatever. Cutting to different aspects of it glues those together and grounds them within the same time frame. Even sort of like how a musical score, if you take a vertical cross section and you can see what all the instruments are doing at the same time, right? So I think I am like maybe spinning out my explanation a little too far, but what I'm saying is like the score is like this glue and that can, and letting them exist together. Of course, we only hear the Aldani music when we're visually seeing the Donnies doing their ritual. It holds this whole heist thing together, and which is like really the point of them even doing it during this time. They timed it to be during the eye, and it's all happening it's all happening and it's all there. And I love how that was like musically carried out. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying there with the way that it seems like the music essentially represents the strategy of the heist. And not just the strategy of the heist, but the reason for doing it in the first place. So like James, you brought up that drone, and how once, when the drone's not there, you can really focus on how wonderful the Aldani celebration is, sort of, in terms of, and then the drone comes in and it's like, yeah, the Empire, people all know that this is the last time it's ever going to happen. They're never going to be allowed to go there again. And so on and so on. And I feel like that's what the drone kind of means. And what you're saying, Chrysanthe, yeah, about just strategically, it's like, okay, we're moving through our plan, keeping track of multiple timelines, because the actual eye is a very short event. And yeah, and they had to time that perfectly. And so every little, I forget what the eye was made of, but every little piece of the eye that flies by,
micro densities.
it's like, it's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, very good, very good.
Cat.
Yes.
Yeah,
go
I
ahead,
agree
Justin.
with everything you're all saying. It's very interesting, like how it glued into the score and how we can switch back and forth yet still have this like the tenseness of the other scenes still within like the Aldani cutaways in a way to kind of to see them. My only, you tell me if this is valid or not. The no really, because like I liked the music. I liked the song. I liked what it was doing. Where I got bugged in, this show takes such care for its realism that the singing didn't sound in world. It sounded like it
was
was
yeah.
perhaps recorded, like them doing it, like to, get the shot, but then recorded and mixed in a studio and overdubbed, like put on them, timed well, kind of a thing. And the part that reveals that to me is the very end, when they're all going, they hit that drone at the little like suspension, doing and there's like a few of them still moving, and there's no jingle bells. You don't hear that. You don't.
I didn't
hear
see
the
any of the
difference
instruments.
voice. You didn't.
What
you
are they
don't hear any
jingling?
I thought they were in their hands. They
I
had
didn't. Did
bells
you?
in their
Does anyone
hands.
see any jingles? I didn't see
I
them.
think I did. I think
saw
I
bells
did.
in their hands.
I
Let
think
me
I
see.
They all
saw
had like on their wrists or on their
Like,
glove.
Oh, I
wrists.
see.
I remember
Okay, they're
someone
just
like
really.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
yeah,
at the
yeah.
end, they all hit this like beautifully like perfect chord, and I almost wish they could have like got this group of actors and actresses to sing, and like have that be like this in-world, more like community-esque sounding.
It's interesting.
I'm
And with the
confused.
jingles, and just to like a curious, there are a couple scenes before they start like performing, their ritual that you see them like walking up, and I don't know if it's like the score or if it's supposed to be, but there's like sometimes walking up and you just hear in the background like, and I don't know if there's like a guy in the back just going like, right, like as they're like walking up. Or if that's
That
just
person
like
is me.
there's like
I'm
a
just
couple.
excited to be there.
It's their arrival song. It's
Yeah,
their it's their
Yeah, right.
Albani's
To me, it's like the knights who say "knee," like in the Monty Python, when there's like one of them is just like in the background going "knee," there's like somebody in the background just going like, dude, are we gonna start playing or what?
Is it time? Is it time?
So anyway, I just thought I think it's supposed to be score, and that's like where I started to be like before they started singing, I was like, ooh, tambourine, because I'm always like, what's my percussion thing of the week, So yeah.
Okay, Justin, to follow up with what you said, was the slight bother, was it because of the coincidentally timed climax or like high note, or was it like the sound mixing?
It's the sound mixing.
Okay.
It's going back to our discussion like with the Darth Maul radio voice kind of a thing, where it sounds like he's right here versus Kira. This is in our solo episode, our minutes, where Kira clearly sounds like she's in the room, where Darth Maul sounds like he's like right next to you.
Right.
Mixed, although so that's what I'm saying. If it's the mixing, it feels like they didn't put the Aldani singing the diegetic music diegetically.
Like
They
it wasn't
just mixed
worldized
it.
properly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's what I'm saying, and that's like a very minor complaint. It's just something I don't know. It just I always like look for those things.
Yeah, for sure.
Are the instruments that we're seeing like in world heard and actually sound like that?
Anything in particular stick out? Because I say this because I'm usually pretty sensitive to that as well, and for me, I don't think I was
I think
bothered
it was
like you were.
It was mostly the end, the very end.
Mostly the end. Okay.
The big, everyone raised their hands and
Yeah, that makes
kind
sense.
of moment.
Yeah.
Music was gorgeous though.
Yeah,
Did you feel it was better at the beginning when it was more just them?
When it got introduced, it felt in world,
Okay.
and then it kind of lost, like went out of world.
I
Off
see.
planet for a
I
bit.
see.
In the mixture of the score and the cutaways and stuff like that, which was like
Makes
well
sense.
done.
Yeah. For those who don't know, worldizing is sort of this, it's this technique in sound editing, sound mixing, I guess, that was apparently created by Walter Murch on American Graffiti. Funny, another George Lucas project. And what worldizing is, it's the process of making a sound, not only, it's making it sound like it's coming from the source that on screen it is coming from, if that makes sense. So in American Graffiti, there are a lot of scenes where people are listening to the radio and cruising in cars and stuff. And so we hear all this diegetic music because they're listening, like actually American Graffiti is really interesting because to me that whole film sounds very quiet, even though there's music all throughout, and it's because the music isn't score. The music is diegetic. It's like it's people listening to the radio and stuff. And so worldizing is like making it sound like the music they're listening to on the radio is actually like in a car, in a radio, like in bouncing off of the streets, the empty streets, rather than like, let's drop in the radio file, let's drop in the like song that they're listening to the radio and having it sound like all crystal clear. We're seeing on screen that they're supposed to be listening to it on the radio. It would be this disconnect. And so that was like a really big deal on that film. And it's a big deal in Star Wars as well. Like, especially if you go back to like, I'm just going to say like the newer Star Wars feels worse at worldizing than the original ones.
Yeah.
And like
it all started at the victory celebration.
Stop. So it's like you'll hear droids, and it really sounds like they're coming from the rooms that they're in, and it's because like on the original Star Wars, like when they were recording droid noises, they weren't just like, I don't know, putting it in post like droid noises. Like they would record the droid noises and then play them on speakers in the actual like on set, so that we would actually hear it literally coming from the room. Anyway, that's worldizing. Cool. And that's kind of what Justin's talking about.
And sometimes you want, like, sometimes for effect, you don't want it. Like, have you seen Baby Driver? Seen this movie? Mm-hmm. Well, there's all that, like, essentially, that's like this guy. He's like a fantastic getaway driver for like, bank robberies. But like to help him drive, and also because he's got like tinnitus, he plays like music in his earbuds while he drives. And he picks out. So what you do is you get to see, like he's driving, and then the music, the source music, is like played mixed in a way where it's just like the song. It's not like made to sound like he's actually, you know what I mean? But it's like that's for effect. Like you're supposed to be like, okay, this is what's going on in his head, but it's like created in this like comic-y, unrealistic way that is for effect, So that would be like not super realistic, quote unquote, worldizing, but it like gets across what it's trying to get across,
Yeah. Well, point is, sound mixing has a big influence on how we're perceiving the sound.
Agrees.
For example, the cat sounds like it's coming out of Christina's room versus Xanthe
and it is
dropping an MP3 of a cat.
That'd be a good prank.
It would be.
I would fall for it. It's true. Oh, you were about to talk, Justin.
No, go
I
ahead.
sensed it. It's true that when I think of the feeling of the older Star Wars movie soundtracks, they are totally full of all of the ambient noise of the technology that they're using. They're full of lightsaber sounds. They're full of things that are being used on the set. And I haven't seen I can't even think of an instance of seeing something like that in the newer things. Not many. Not.
I mean, it's there. It's just when it's done well, it's just not noticed as much. It's just when it's not done well is when it sticks out.
Yeah.
Like in Solo, all over Solo.
It's a weird movie. Hey, by the way, since I brought this since I knew that both of you are going to be on the stream today.
My love.
So I figured.
Thrawn cup?
I have a
He has a
Thrawn
Thrawn mug. I don't even have a Thrawn mug. But soon I'll have a Thrawn felt forward figure.
It's true.
So,
More music.
while we're here in this moment of this Aldani thing, ceremony celebrating the eye, let's talk about the eye.
Yes.
'Cause that was finally, after like 3 episodes, we got to see this magical moment.
That was wild.
A couple things about all of this. One, I liked how they introduced the eye happening in like these short like overhead bursts kind of a thing, kind of like foreboding what it's gonna be. And it was these like piercing...
Yeah, at first I thought that was going to be it.
Yeah. Well, like, oh, we're just gonna see a couple as it's going.
I was like, oh, it's like a couple shooting stars.
No, but and they sounded so. So last week, viewers, we were speculating on what the eye was gonna sound like. Like, what is this sound? And they ended up individually sounding like these like jet engines flying.
Yeah, like rockets,
flying
right?
past these like molten rock, crumbly, fiery feel as they like rip through the sky, which was pretty darn cool. And then the moment the big shower happens,
Oh yeah.
we get the silence that we kind of also thought was gonna happen.
I knew it.
And instead we get this like really gorgeous moment with if that's a little loud, the strings doing this like as like the thing coming. Did you notice though that that's like the stack of the Andor theme
Yeah.
in a way? Right? Which I thought was kind of an interesting take on it. But when I first heard the first meteor piece of the eye go by, what I thought the eye was going to end up sounding like is the MP3 that I dropped you, Xanthe,
Oh, good segue.
which I recreated, which I took a sample from the episode and then stacked like a million of them on top of each other. This is what I thought it was going to sound
Oh,
like.
okay. So, listeners, this is not what it actually was. This is a. What do you think? I hear. Oh. Imagine.
I thought it was going to be this big roar across the sky, and that was going to be part of their cover. Not only the spectacle, but just the sheer volume
Noise.
of
Like everyone's just
what-
shouting for the rest of the episode because they can't hear each other.
Yeah.
And they're like, we got to make it realistic. What?
Well, I mean, they'd be inside, I suppose. But, but even when, like, later on, when they're, like, flying and escaping through, which was, James, you predicted that was going to happen, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. I did have a moment where I was like, see, I told you they were gonna fly through that thing.
I did think of that, and I was like,
last week I was like, they're going to get off the planet somehow, right?
Yeah,
and
but
you, both of you were like, oh no, man. I was like, yes, they are. Okay.
I didn't say no. I just thought, oh, that would be interesting. But I didn't think we would hear it. That was like my big thing. I didn't think we would hear it when they were flying by.
All right.
But we didn't.
Exactly.
In a way, we didn't hear it either. That should have been this massive. We got a great soundtrack that was like epic and big and just like emotionally like tugging at your heartstrings at every moment in different ways. There's an example from that I want to talk about later, but you would have thought that like it would have been like that close to 1,000 of these things would have been deafening. And I understand for scoring and plot purposes and production purposes and keeping it interesting, they didn't do that. But I wanted to recreate what I kind of hoped it was gonna sound.
That was cool.
I'm happy you made that. That would have been
me
a
too.
great, beautiful metal moment and noise vibes for the win.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they really just sacrificed all that, and then also the diegetic music for the greater good of the eye
Yeah.
and of the effect.
Yeah. I think that's
And I
exactly
said that. Yeah.
Nope.
That was also a Thrawn reference.
Oh. I get it.
I do not.
I think that's going back to like the strategy, or I guess the sound reflecting a strategy. I think that this is like a prime example. Like the fact that we didn't hear the eye doesn't mean that the eye doesn't actually continue to have a sound. Maybe maybe that is what they were hearing. But this is where the creative liberties. This is where, the filmmakers shape the viewer's perception by directing us to something different. I mean, it happens all the time. Like, there's things happening all around us all the time, but sometimes we're focusing on just, a couple of them and kind of disregarding the fact that my AC is really loud in the back there.
Right.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, those decisions absolutely have to be made. And I mean, when I first watched this, I got chills in that moment. Like how it just, everything cut out. We get this like angelic pad that kind of grows as we see these colors kind of streak. I wish that moment was a little longer in the episode, because we kind of just see it beginning and then we immediately cut to something else. I wish we had a few more seconds with like the beginning of what they view.
Yeah,
And that's exactly how meteor showers are, because they go and then they're gone, and then you wish they were longer.
Yeah.
That's so true. How about Cassian? He's just like, how many like natural, celestial, what's the word, like existential threats is he going to like navigate a ship through, like in his lifetime, right? Like, remember, like on Jeddah, like the Death Star blowing up everything. It's like, how many times does he do this? I was getting very, very Rogue One vibes from this scene when he's like going through. And not, I mean, we also got a direct reference to Rogue One with Manifesto Boy. What's his name?
Nemec.
Nemec going climb, which is what
His name was
K2SO.
Nemec.
That's right.
Yeah, his name
But K2SO, that's his last words in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
He goes climb because he tells Cassian to climb up the data tower to get the Rogue One, to get the Death Star plans. And so that was definitely a Rogue One reference with as K2 was dying, he's like, climb. Hey, Jonah, we're on the same page. Here you go.
Yeah.
Once again, no references in this show.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
No references in this show.
Oh, and there was like the solo cocktail glasses too in this episode.
Oh, wait, what? Oh, wait.
What?
Are those the Colo Clawfish glasses?
I don't. Yeah, maybe. No, it was the drinks that they had. It's basically like an aluminum can with a wine glass on top.
Oh,
Where were those in
Solo?
Solo? Like on Dryden's yacht?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I remember looking at that and being like, did they just like take like a tuna can and then like put a wine glass on the top? And it basically looks like that. But they had those at the Imperial, party or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That, I loved their like matching mug moment toward the beginning. I don't know if I loved it, but it made me smile.
Imperial Yeti mugs.
What'd you call them?
Yeti mugs. Yeti, like Yeti, the
Yeah.
brand.
Like these.
They are like Yetis, yeah.
Yeah, like Imperial Yeti mugs.
They did look. They did kind of look like that. Yeah. What was I gonna say? I was gonna show something. No, I lost it. That's fine. What were we talking about? Solo references.
Cups.
Climb. Oh, climb. Okay. And then also sort of Skeen's last conversation about how, they climb. They're both, from the trenches or whatever, and they climb their way up. Remember? Yeah.
Yeah.
We were born in the hole. We were both born in the
I
hole.
thought that was really poignant.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no way we can climb out. Yeah, it was two different. That's interesting that both of the characters that have the most different points of view are the ones that kind of are dying in that same couple scenes. We've got the most pessimistic character who thinks there's absolutely no way they can climb out, and we've got the manifesto writing Nemec, who believes wholeheartedly. That's very romantic, with an R, capital R.
Capital R. Yeah. Climbing. Lots of climbing. And the whole thing about like the old technology as well. I liked so much of that. It was also like double meaning, almost. The whole thing about like the whole dynamic of the escape, or of the flying away. Well, first of all, musically, like the strings were doing this very shimmery type of, continuing along what Justin was saying about how basically the additive harmony, like the chords sort of where one note plays, I don't remember the notes exactly, but where one note plays, I'll do it higher. One note plays and then sustain, then maybe another one will play, and it kind of stacks into this like whole, expands into this big chord. In their escape, there was this like I don't know, I couldn't like hear exactly the rhythm, but it was like.
Yeah.
Whatever. It was like. And it was just this, I don't know, just very like forward moving, but also
like
kind of
Shaft.
almost like nervous-y, but like it sounded so shimmery. It was on strings. And so it was,
And you get this big suspension of that chord at the end.
Yeah.
This was actually one of the things I wanted to bring up, so I'm glad you brought this up too. But I loved this moment too, because not only get these big kind of, like you said, nervous, excited, we're
It
gonna
almost
make it,
sounds
we're
like they're gonna make it.
kind
Exactly.
of a thing. Like they're not gonna make it, and then they are gonna make it, and they did it. But what's crazy about it, and what I loved about it, is that we just also witnessed Nemec get crushed. And all this bad stuff happen, and this score briefly reflects that, but then jumps back into this like, no wait, they're still going. So you don't even have like, the score doesn't even give you time to like more Nemec. There wasn't a moment for them to be like dun dun dun, and, everything gets slow motion, and we have some like Nemec in the background kind of a thing happen. No, they just kept going because Andor had to keep flying. They had to get out, and the score was like really driving that. And then right after that, we get to have our Nemec moment, even though we all just got shocked. I was shocked.
Totally. It was
Especially
really
'cause everyone else-
brutal.
yeah, everyone else went down like with like a blaster fire to the shoulder, kind of a thing, where Nemec got crushed.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
I can't. There's not a whole lot of those kinds of deaths in Star Wars. I feel.
No.
You either get hit with a lightsaber or a blaster. You don't get like these.
Yeah,
like,
getting crushed.
physical things.
Yes,
And
that's a good
the
point.
sound effect was there.
Yeah, the crack.
The sound was there. I mean, the gravity, the motion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Again, such like you felt it. You felt, and especially with the sound design of the rocket, of the ship. You feel that blast off. You feel that acceleration. It's punctuated by the score. It was such a great moment. I mean, production-wise, it was such a great moment. It was sad and terrible after that, but
Now that you mention it, they don't ever mention that Nemec was crushed. It's just we all got it from all the clues that they gave us. Like all.
I can't feel my legs, and then they spike him with med spike. What is that, adrenaline?
I thought that med spike was especially brutal because for a second you're like, oh, like maybe he can heal quickly, and then you're like, no, there's nothing in Star Wars like that works quite like that. Like, and do they have I mean, like there are like Mando's got
There
some
is
things
magic.
like that, but that's good. But at the same, then you realize how utilitarian the med spike actually is. It's that he's the one who knows the vector, and he's the one who knows how they're going to get through that storm. And that's really tragic to be like, well, we can all tell that he's pretty much dying right now, but we need him to get on his navigation device, and he's kind of the only one who knows how to work it, other
And
than
he's
Clem,
even
who's flying the plane.
begging them not to do it. Yeah, he's even begs them not to do it very briefly before they just stab him.
Begs them not to what?
To
Save him.
give him the med spike. There's very briefly, he's like, no, and then They just kind of jab him.
Yeah.
And the fact that Vel, so quickly, didn't want to save him, like she knew that it was too late.
Yeah.
She moved
Well, that was
quickly there,
interesting,
but she
right?
did not move quickly earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that moment when she was basically just, staring down the barrel of like what she was about to commit to, and I like that,
Yeah.
I like to see.
It made me
I like
more
to
scared.
See yeah, I mean, you don't get to see that, which is like these are real people that are about to embark on a actually scary thing, and you don't get to see that kind of like that
Hesitation.
hesitance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But what was up with what's his name? Skeen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Skeen, good old Skeen, he was the one that was like, let's stop and help him. Do you think that was part of his like I'm gonna steal all this stuff plan? Do you think that's like
Yeah.
he was
Absolutely.
like if I can get them distracted inside, then word to the wise in Star Wars, don't try to shadily conspire with Cassian Andor, or he'll shoot you point blank in the face. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
He's
Lesson
done
learned.
that twice in this show so far. First, it was the cop that was like, "Don't worry, we'll tell him it was an accident. Nothing happened. Everything." And he's like, so Cassian gets
Like,
really
nah.
offended when you try to rope him into your schemes. Okay.
Well, I don't think
and
he's
he'll shoot
offended.
you.
I don't think he's
No,
offended.
he's just
yeah.
he just quickly he's-
Oh.
yeah.
I'm saying
You see
like,
in Rogue One.
you know what I mean? Like he's like, yeah, that's right. The Rogue One scene, he'll shoot you right in the face. He's brutal. Cop is like, yo, we won't tell anybody. Skeen's like, let's steal all the money. Hopefully he does this a couple more times in this show so I can just do like a super cut of him just like shooting people when they try to get him to like be dishonest,
Okay, I want to know everyone's Skeen thoughts. Because here's the thing, we don't know for sure if Skeen was just testing him or if
Right,
he,
that's
or like
true.
or if he could, because I don't think that I think Skeen, like, I guess it's easy to think that in retrospect, oh, now I'm questioning everything Skeen has said. Has everything Skeen said before a lie? And I believe him when he says that he's a rebel. I believe him when he says that he does care about that, about the rebel cause, and that he hates the Empire. I totally believe him there. Like, so there's, I think, like, I'm not even sure in my mind, and we'll never know because Skeen is dead now. But I don't know exactly what was behind him. Like, when he first started saying that to Cassian, my first thought was that he's testing Cassian.
Likewise, yeah. And
We'll never know.
he made that
Yeah.
mortal mistake,
Yeah.
Trying to do that. Yeah. It was weird. I don't know. I mean, as he was saying his plan, even I got the impression like, well, no, because you're just gonna take me and the ship off to this place and you're gonna kill me and you're gonna take the money because I just flew the ship for you. Like, I wasn't tricked by him. Where I was confused though and was kind of tricked was whether or not there's the line of when he said, 40 million credits will make me forget you. And he says, well, what about your brother? I don't have a brother. And so there I felt that was like this ambiguous kind of thing where it's like either he's saying, no, I never had a brother. I've been lying this entire time. But to me, it came across as like, for 40 million credits, yeah, I don't have a brother either. I'll go.
That's how I read that line.
Kind of a thing. So I like how there's like this, like, no,
yeah.
we really
I'm not sure
don't
if I
know.
read it that
And then
way.
right after the fact, when he's confronting Vel and he's like, he was going to take all your money. He's like, he would never do that. I imagine there was like this moment in Cassian's like, oh yeah, I can't prove this. He's dead. Well, you're going to have to think about that. Like, maybe he did act a little too quickly, kind of a thing. I don't know. There's nothing spelled out.
Well, what's her name, Val? What if Val was just like, did he try to test you out there like we planned? And he's like,
Oh,
no,
worry
no.
Don't worry about it.
Oh no, that was a test. Oh, Jonah thinks so
I-
too.
He told me he wasn't testing me.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was he was gonna just off Cassian, get the money, take all the money. And I don't know. I'm not
I
convinced that
believe
was his
him,
entire. Yeah, I'm not
me
convinced that was
too.
his whole plan from the beginning either.
Yeah, I
that
think
was,
we see-
I think it's possible that he was just when he saw that there could be an opportunity, then thought about it. Like well, we don't know exactly at what point he decided to move forward with that idea, but it could have been, just when he knew that Nemec was injured. It could have been then. We don't know. Like, because
Yeah.
I find it difficult to believe that someone would literally go through this entire heist just to steal it at the end, because it's so risky. So
I think it's when he saw the gold. There's that moment when he walks into the vault and he's about to tell everybody that their job is to move it all, and he goes, oh. And then he
That's
all
true.
of a sudden, like, he gets it together and he's like, move, get in there.
Yeah.
But nobody notices it because, I mean, he is like starstruck. He is way more starstruck than the eye starstruck him.
yeah.
And so I think that's a big moment. But also, I think Skeen has a big, like, kind of symbolic, has a big symbolic role in this show. And I think it's that he represents somebody who's at the very bottom of the empire machine, which he's talking about, and the, like, we're both born down here in the sewer, like, how are we going to get up? Sorry, that was not a very good
Hole.
quote, but you
fine.
got the hole. They're in the hole. And so Skeen represents that. And the thing is, like, whenever you do something, it's not like you make a decision and then that decision allows you to move forward through the entire plan. You make a decision and then you have to keep making that decision again and again, keep reaffirming it to be like, okay, I'm still going to go forward with this. I'm still going to go forward with this. And it seems like when he saw the gold, maybe, or at some other moment, like, for sure, it sounds like at the very least he questioned it. But he questioned whether or not he needed to stay with the team or whether he needed to take this all for himself and finally get out, because that's kind of how the Empire programs you. It's like, wait until you get your big break, like, stay down here, and then some opportunity will happen, and then you've got to seize it, and it's super competitive, and it's dog eat dog, and that's kind of his societal training. I think, like, it's a nasty little world that the Empire creates for everyone at every level. Has to deal with that absurd competition.
Right.
And
that's
this
what
show does,
Yeah, no, go keep going, Christina. Yeah.
I'm just gonna wrap up with, like, and this show just does such a good job in a way of portraying, I almost want to say, like, the working class, like, several different in-depth looks at, like, what their lives could be like, different populations and groups, and Skeen is kind of representing, one of those ways of thinking where it's like, okay, well, we were trained to take what we can and run with it, so he's going to do that. And he has now assessed that Cassian is maybe, like, the most competent person on the crew, who also maybe has dubious enough morals to go along with his sort of theft plan. And probably if it wasn't Andor, it might have worked. Like, it seems like in that society, if you were to flip a coin, like, is this person gonna, like, steal 40 million credits with me or not? Like, 40,000. Yeah, like, yes, they are probably. And that's kind of why Andor is an exception. That's where he stands out.
I love
And
that.
I think that's what the Rebel Alliance allows people to move on from, because I think the reason why people like Skeen, who might be really big assets to a rebellion, end up looking out only for themselves is because they don't have proof that it's even safe to ally yourself with a small band of people that are dying off one by one. You're thinking to yourself, what am I going to throw in the chips with this group of people that don't have a fighting chance, or am I just going to look out for myself? But the Rebel Alliance ultimately enables people that maybe aren't the poster boys of the Alliance and the cause to be able to, like, I'm not going to betray these people because we actually have a fighting chance. This is a group of people. I don't feel alone. I'm not by myself here, right? So, like, like you see it right now in the beginnings of a rebellion, why it's so hard to get off the ground, because people who don't believe in the cause enough, in terms of they don't believe in the success of the cause. They might believe in the cause, but they're like, but what I'm risking here is like me ultimately dying with these people when I could probably run away with all the gold and, you know, at least look out for myself. But by the time we get to A New Hope, we've got like a fleet of X-Wings. We've got like headquarters, and it's like we might actually have a chance at this. So let's see it out. Let's see it through. You know?
I mean, it reminds me of like unionizing. And
exactly like a union, right? Exactly like a union.
so in these early stages, like wow, like I have so much admiration for these like early rebels who have no idea, like, oh my gosh, they're the ones stealing the money, which is the dirty work to us, maybe, power, get ships and, get supplies to fund a rebellion. But the people who have to get the money, that's the dirty work, not just in that it's hard, because it's also, difficult to be doing a trench run and stuff like that, but like, because it's morally taxing as well. Because just think of all that they've had to do. And the episode really shows that as well. Like when we see just the innocent, ill boy, like it's the weight on the moral weight is just so huge. And we see that with Cassian in Rogue One as well. And in Rogue One, he's ready to kill Jin's dad, like, too.
Yeah.
Just even, and it doesn't even matter in Rogue One that Jin's like, my father's and, whatever, don't kill my dad. It's my dad. Like, at Cassian, if he feels like there is a shadow of a doubt, he'll get rid of them. And like it or not, like those decisions help make the rebellion possible.
For sure. Hey, it's kind of fitting that the naive, or you can call him naive, but the idealistic manifesto writing is ultimately killed by gold. He's killed by a big pile of money, right? So, which is like, that's kind of, the dream can be killed by greed, right? Quite literally on our screens.
Crushed by the weight.
Yeah.
With the weird necessity, and we're seeing, like we're saying, like this, we're seeing the dirty work get done for what will ultimately become the rebel, like the full-blown rebel alliance. And we see on the opposite side of all this, while this is happening or while it's ending, we get this great scene at the very end of the episode with Luthen.
That
who
scene
schemed this whole thing and is on the outside with Mon Mothma trying to get money, because Mon Mothma can't give money anymore. People are getting suspicious, so they came up with this plan to do it. And after all this tragedy, all this tension, all this suspense through this episode of these horrible things happening on so many levels, we get this relieved, laughing Lucian, who's a good guy. If we're gonna like evil good, just binary this, is essentially a good guy, like celebrating this, and has no clue what just happened. All he knows is it happened.
It happened.
And it happened, and it's begun, and we get the Andor score in this kind of stretched like glory, like not quite happy, but definitely triumphant in its own right. And just relieved. And happy.
That scene, that was like, it massively affected me. It was like, that scene was like the kicker at the end of a poem. It was like, this whole episode was like a poem, really, like in such an efficient space of time. Like, we've just been with these characters that we've gotten to know, through previous episodes. We've like care about them. We know about like their individual differences. They're not just rebel extras to us. Like, and we see just how tragic this mission has been, while also being a success. It has been a success. Like, the mission has been a success, and there has been all this death. And we've been living in this world of all this tension. It's been fucking brutal, right? And then seeing Luthen's like sweet relief, like just his nerve, you could feel like his nervous energy just like coming out, you know, we've been wrecked, but like, I loved that moment because it did such a perspective shift in such an efficient space. Like nothing had to be said, you know, like, oh, it was a loss for some people, but like a win for the rebellion. It was like, we just saw it. It was just such it was such effective, like filmmaking, you know, storytelling, shooting, whatever, like, because all of these things are true. It was a great success. Like this was, it was a great success, and all of it, and it kind of puts in perspective for me all of the rest of the rebellion, all the rest of the rebellion successes. Where there's, you know, it just, wow.
Exactly, and the score there, again with the strings and this kind of stretched Andor theme, in this like almost. Like I said, it's bittersweet. It's almost happy. It's triumphant, but it's almost like, you know what it reminded of? Since we always got to like bring in Marvel to these things, it reminded me of the end of Infinity War. Spoilers if you haven't seen it in the last 10 years, kind of a thing, where we off half the characters that we've grown to love. They all just disappear to dust. And we have this beautiful string quartet as the villain of this whole franchise sits down and smiles at his success, and the film ends. You know, it's this weird moment, this very weird moment in that whole series, and a very like beautiful moment in a dark way. And this scene with Luthen reflected that in a weird way, of after all this destruction. He succeeded.
I know what you mean about the music sounding like, I don't think it sounded like you said. It's not quite celebratory.
Happy. It's not celebratory.
I think what it for me, it was a cathartic descending bass line that really did it for me, where it was like the melody, you know, and then in the bass line we're having. So it's like dee 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 dee, like, or you know, or I think it's like dee 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 dee. Yeah, that's what it was. But it was just like such a strong, like it felt like it had, you know, it brought a little bit of a pulse to it, and just it just felt, I don't know why a descending bass line. It just made it sound like cathartic to me in a way. What Bill says is, I think, is a good point as well.
Yeah, celebrating the fact that the heist is being reported so widely that it's the talk of Coruscant.
Yeah.
And it's spreading, and then the music, like after the strings, it immediately goes like into what would be. Usually they have some kind of version of like the Andorish theme at the end and at the beginning, but it's like synthesizer driven. In a way, it becomes this like at the very, very end. Oh, nothing's coming through.
No, it's coming through. It's coming through.
That was coming through.
Oh.
But the other ones weren't coming through.
Yeah.
There it is. And the
Yes.
strings doing this like.
Yeah, I really, in kind of connecting what you were just saying with Justin, with the lines that you were also just playing, Chrysanthe. What I really heard there is contrary motion opening up, and I think that is why it and that goes thematically to a variety of different directions. So one of them is what you were saying, Bill Rudd, about how the news is spreading across all of Coruscant. So there's this kind of, okay, the rebellion is growing, but at the same time, it's also kind of, and what I'm going to speak to now is how there is this kind of binary concept of good and bad, or success and failure, or celebration and loss. And I think that contrary motion opening up is actually showing that we're moving away from this from this non-binary, or from this binary system to a non-binary system where it's like we can hold the all of this we can it kind of starts during the eye, when it's like we're holding all this tension because we don't know whether we're going to succeed or fail. We don't know succeed and fail. That's one drama, but at the same time we're also holding the combination of the celebration mixed with the loss of knowing that this is the last time the Empire is going to let them all see the eye, and the scariness of the Empire. And then that develops into how we have to watch them escape and succeed at their mission while their comrades are dying and being crushed by gold in the back of the truck. And then that moves to this, that I think it's just kind of showing that you have to be able to hold two different, very different things that are kind of considered binary at the same time. How do you do that? And it's trying to help us understand that. And I think the Andor line, the way, even though it's not actually contrary motion, it's just kind of building. I mean, it's more oblique motion, or right, or what is it when there's one and then the other one moves?
Oblique.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just kind of this sense of opening, this sense of a dawn, just like also the Andor visual, the like the sun kind of coming around the planet. It's like, starting up.
Yeah. So just quick little visual for those who don't know. Contrary motion is when one of the lines is going up and the other line is going down. So it kind of can have the effect of like things being more spread apart. Like if you were just to take a scale, like, you could go, or you could go, and that second one would be contrary motion because you're going in the opposite direction. It's also contrary motion, by the way, if it's flipped. If one side is going down and the other side's going up, so they can be converging or diverging. So there you go. Yeah, contrary motion is like, that was a very palpable there, or contrary or oblique motion. Okay, so we have to talk about the klaxon.
Yes. Klaxon alarm.
Yeah, Bill started it with, loved the quick Imperial klaxon when TIE fighters were loading. Oh my gosh, those TIE fighters, wow.
Oh, that was
Wow.
such a great scene too.
Oh my
Seeing
God.
Hey, we finally saw some like Stormtrooper-esque helmets, right? Like that's the first time we've seen like the
in the
like,
TIE fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how they're hung, and the sounds of them being loaded and unthing, and you see the eye and the reflection of their. They almost look like green diamonds or something for a moment. Like, ooh, are these special? But no, it's like it's
Just the hue of the whole thing.
I also thought it was funny that I mentioned this. My dad and I watched these episodes. He's in San Diego, but we will start it at the same time and then talk about them afterwards.
It's awesome.
And I joked. We both joked. Like, I think this is the first time that we've ever seen the Empire release only 3 TIE fighters, not 25, not 500, only 3.
Probably because it's such a liability to send them out there with like freaking meteors everywhere.
They know that they're
right?
not coming back. Well, then they should have sent.
And they were mentioning, all the bases are shutting down. Like, I got it. It was just funny.
Right.
But plus, because they set this up in the last episode where all the officers are off duty watching the eye.
Yes.
Exactly. Which was
Very true.
Great. But yeah, we get the klaxon alarm in there. Pitched a little higher than I think we usually hear it, and it was
like a half step or something.
Was it what? Yeah, was it just my ears, or was it in rhythm?
It was in rhythm. It was in. I think the score was
almost like rhythm. Like
the score was definitely supporting it, right? So that it's going, and then the score was going like, well, first the drums are like going, but it was like it kind of had like a pitch bend to it, like with the.
It was like on the 2 and 4 almost. Like the klaxon alarm was almost on like the
3250.
Xanthe, how were the drums going again?
God dang it. Like
which we also need
like
to talk about after this.
No, it was like Tom's, right?
Well,
I don't actually remember.
Well, I want to know what I really would love to see. It's like that perpetual motion, percussion sample sound of like when in lots of heists, which is kind of sounds like it's a hi-hat. It's like a synthy hi-hat type of sound. I think Justin, did you prepare something? Yeah. This thing.
There we go. Yeah, it's the machine gun.
Right.
And you could just like. Kind of mix that in and out with different accents and rhythms. For some reason, it always ends up being some kind of 3-3-2
For sure.
thing like that. Very popular to do in heist movies, which made this like feel like it was a heist. But it was like almost the entire like episode that was happening. If you noticed.
But the onset of those that klaxon with the with that percussion and with the horns, kind of giving the chordal pad, was just a cool mixture there. Especially just love how the klaxon was just incorporated into that. So cool.
Love a good
The alarm was
klaxon.
definitely in rhythm with the score, vice versa. Yeah,
a good
for
klaxon.
sure. What'd you say?
Klaxon.
Love
I
a
said
good
I love a good klaxon.
No, me too. Love a good klaxon. Good stuff. Let's see. There's definitely other stuff to talk about.
Maybe someone can help me with this. I've been thinking about this the whole time.
Okay.
The end of this, there's this movie, okay? I'd love someone in the chat or one of y'all or somebody later on to help me scratch this movie itch. There's this movie that ends, I feel like it ends this way, and it's like the character that's like a detective that's been like hunting the main protagonist throughout the whole movie is now realizing the genius of the protagonist's plan and starts clapping and laughing because he's come to the realization of what has happened, right? Like the protagonist pulled off some scheme or some plan or heist or something like that. And then there's like an antagonistic force that's like a good guy detective or something like that. That's like, well done. And does that at the end of the movie. Does anyone know what movie I'm talking about?
Is it an old movie or a new movie?
It's like probably
seen-
like 90s, 2000s movie, right? Or something like that.
Okay.
Like I've seen
something.
I was gonna say, is that
in a
Batman
couple
or
things,
You know what I'm
something?
talking
but-
about?
No, I don't know what
Yeah.
you're
Is it
talking about.
It's like a heist movie, or it's like Catch Me If You Can, maybe. or
Oh,
something
Catch
like,
Me If You Can might be.
Does that happen in that
Oh,
movie
it
where
could
he
be
like
Catch Me If You
realizes?
Can.
It's something like that, where like the main character is like either escaping from prison or like pulling off a heist or pulling off some con job or something like that. And then the main character is like, it's all hitting him what just happened. Or like the main detective or something is like, ha ha, you really got us on that one. And that's what this scene reminded me of Luthen at the end of this episode was, where it's like all hitting him what just happened, right? But I can't think of the movie, and I really wanted to figure out.
I think Catch Me
what
If You
the movie
Can.
is.
I feel like that happens in Catch Me If You Can. I think.
Right, where he's like, he really pulled one over on me. Oh boy.
So do you feel like that was happening in this episode somewhere?
No, I feel like that's like Luthen's reaction at the end
Oh.
of this thing. Like,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
interesting.
It's like this cathartic like realization that everything happened the way that, he had anticipated. That's kind of what the framing of that scene reminded me of. You just get this. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there because it's been in my head for the last like 10 minutes since we talked about that.
I like that you brought that up actually, because I think that's kind of a theme I see in Star Wars is two opponents, and sometimes when you get opponents who are so good at opponents who are so good at playing. Can you still hear me and stuff?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. I have a keyboard over there and she was on it. So yeah, opponents who are playing the game at such a high level that they appreciate when the other opponent does something that's so skilled and so amazing
Yeah,
that
game
you just have
recognizes
to
game,
applaud
right?
that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I will admit that I mean, like that's something that Thrawn loves to do is if he has an opponent, like he'll actually
Night
discuss
Swan.
like, wow, like during battle, he will tell the other side like, good move, or
Yeah, and he
or
loves
well
it.
done.
He loves it.
Yeah, and so I see that, and I also see a lot of the Imperial High Command doing things like that.
Hux.
You know, yeah. Vader doesn't do that, from what I can tell, but
Right.
you know, he's got his focus.
Although he is impressed, like when Luke is like using the Force and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There is this kind
Most
of,
impressive.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's that is one of the ethoses of everything.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I think when considering the Empire and what it stands for, I think there are definitely people on the inside of it who are kind of cogs in the machine, and if they're, if they're not totally brainwashed, can appreciate when someone can poke a hole through them a little bit. And we do see it in we do see it in books a little bit. And now we're starting to see it too, since we're seeing, more of the working class and more of the people that are, kind of toward the bottom or toward the middle, just the middle, what's it called? Middle range employees? Middle on the ladder.
Mid-level.
Mid-level. Okay, there we go. Mid-level. Yeah, we're seeing more of that. Kat wants the spotlight.
So
She
we
does.
should probably don't the two of you have like basically identical cats?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Very similar.
Very similar. Though mine has
Extremely
white
similar.
paws. Mine has some white
Right.
as well.
Mine is monocoloric. Sorry,
Yeah.
that word botch. Monochromatic. But yeah, they're for sure the same breed, I would say, right? Like they're both Russian blue vibes.
Yeah, vibes. Mine's a mix of, mine's a
Mine
domestic
too.
short hair, but it looks like she has Russian blue vibes in her genes, I guess.
Yeah.
Not vibes. Midichlorians. Russian midichlorians in her.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Bill, what do you think of the Imperial March tease right after the communication jammer engages? Huh.
It was subtle. It was cool though.
23, 27 or something, was it?
Yeah.
Very subtle.
I'm not sure I know exactly what you're talking about. Do you remember the instrument it's on?
I thought it was like some kind of.
Oh, it's totally there. It goes na na na, and on this like it's like a synthy metallic sound. Na, na, and then it goes down to the A. Yeah. Totally.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that. But that's funny because I thought, see, the reason I don't think it's an Imperial March reference, I think it is, I don't think it's an Imperial March tease. I think it's that the new Imperial theme also is like that. And that is, so I guess it all traces back to the Imperial March origin.
Yeah.
But the closer reference would just be, or I always mix up the Kenobi Imperial and this one, whatever. But they both have the same chord progression. They both have the same chord progression. Sorry, not that. C sharp minor, A minor. So teasing the roots of those two chords kind of does that. And then you could also even think, the Batman score does this. The entire Batman film is this. But I won't talk about that right now. Yeah. There's also... Nope, I'm not going to talk about that YouTube video. All right, so that's what I think of that Imperial March tease.
Yeah.
I think
Likely
it's
not a direct reference, but more like it's within the same like harmonic language of
Right.
it, right?
So it's like a no, but yes. Yeah, yes, but no, but yes. But it all goes back to the Imperial March. So kind of still. Yeah. Did you all see the purposely mistranslated translation that Lieutenant Gorn was doing with the Aldanis? So the Aldanis were
Yeah.
like so like the Aldanis were speaking, and Lieutenant Gorn was translating for J-Hold, whatever his position is. And so the Aldanis were saying like, our ghosts have strong hands and long memories. And then Lieutenant Gorn said, "May the eye find the good in all of us," like mistranslating them. So they were
thought
like
that was
shit talking.
good.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
I thought it kind of went right back to the whole Skeen theme of there's no hope. Like he's basically saying like there's no point in me telling him that his actions will come back and bite him because he doesn't care. He's not going to care. He never will care. It's not even worth translating.
Skeen talking about whom? Who?
Oh, so sorry. So I brought in Skeen to be like, to me, Skeen like symbolizes this whole there's no hope for any of us.
Gotcha. So
That
take
that's
what you
kind
can
of
get.
like his vibe. And so I just brought that up to say like this moment goes back to that where where our character is just kind of saying, I'm not even going to translate this because the person who's going to be receiving the translation does not care, will not care. There's literally no point. And he almost wants to just communicate that to the leader of these people. And the leader clearly gets it. I mean, he looks at him kind of offended, like, you didn't translate what I said properly. He didn't, I mean,
Right. But the leader, I wonder, does the Aldani leader know that Lieutenant Gorn is this like a spy or like playing both sides or on the rebel side? See,
don't know.
what
I
that
thought it
reminded
was-
me of was Luthen's conversation with the woman in his shop, where he's like, "Oh, the language is lost," and she's like, "How sad," and he's like, "Oh, you can just make up whatever you want."
That was great.
That's so funny.
I thought
It's like
it was
getting
also-
tattoos in other languages,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
who knows
I
what
thought
they
it was
mean.
also interesting, like the fact that two things about that scene where, yeah, the leader looked like concerned or like, what did you just say to him, kind of a thing. Like that's not what I said, implying that the leader can understand in a way and is choosing not to speak basic English.
Yeah.
To our ears, kind of a thing. It's just choosing not to. And so he knew, it's like, that's not what I said. Like, he knew the translation. And also, we kind of brought this up earlier in our show here. I think of the first episode when we were talking about the Canary people not being translated.
Yes.
And we're just kind of get what they're saying. I thought it was interesting that in this episode, not only did we got both. We got the Aldani being translated when it was important for us, like, to know like what they were saying in the terms of like this like wordplay and these relationships. But then when they weren't talking to the Imperials and just talking to each other, we didn't hear any of the translation. They didn't translate any of it. It was just, okay, now we're just talking to ourselves, and
Right.
They weren't
Or
translated.
their song. We didn't get their song translated either.
Well, because I think the point was not to translate, not for us to know what the Aldanis are saying. The point of that scene was to know that Lieutenant Gorn was mistranslating them on purpose. You're right. The
Right.
focus being
but,
on.
but even before that, when Gorn even said, "You look tired from your long," he was trying to be polite, and the leader is like, "May the eye be open long enough to find good in you." It's like, ooh, that was a burn, kind of a thing. Poor Gorn is sitting there like, if only you knew, you know, what
Right.
I'm trying to do, kind of a thing.
Right,
But they
right.
translated that, so that's what
Oh,
I
that's
mean.
true.
When it was, when talking to the Imperials, they translated it to us. But or at least between Gorn and them, but
Yeah.
not in any other time.
I guess it showed that. Oh yeah, okay. So I guess those two scenes show that the Aldanis don't trust Gorn. Oh, Gorn to them is another Imperial, and also that Gorn, even though he knows that they hate him and they think he's just an Imperial, is still. I think he still is trying to help them in a way by being this like intermediate, like he's trying to keep things smooth, like he's trying to play this like political game, like he's trying to smooth over the communications stuff, because what the Aldanis say is basically like F you, and he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell not going to translate that. I'll say that you said nice, welcome, basically, is
Right.
yeah.
I have a
Here's the
question.
thing. Well, I was just gonna say, like, here's the thing: is if he, I mean, you might other Imperials might be like, well, why did you tolerate that type of disrespect towards you, right? And
Yeah.
he let them go through after being basically told, to go fuck himself, right? So
Yeah, it would have raised questions.
So he would have been like, hey, that he just told me that, and they would have been like, well, why didn't you like hit him in the face for saying that, right?
Yeah.
So
That's a good point. He was protecting them. I like that.
Yeah.
So the question I was having, so there's a way that I understood one of the phrases that they used frequently, and I want to know if you guys also perceived it that way. And that is the phrase, may the eye find the good in you, may the eye find the good in us. Like, to me, I guess for some rereason I just assumed that was kind of like, may the Lord be with us, or that was like the phrase for this event. That would like that maybe for some reason I just naturally assume. I mean, probably because of my religious indoctrination, but I just assumed that was the point of the whole eye thing, was like, oh well, the eye is going to find the good in us, and so that also made me think that that's why the leader knew that the translation was not accurate. Because if that's the phrase that they say every year, then you would pick up that in basic, may the eye find the good in us. Like, you would know what, even if you didn't speak basic, you would still know that that's what it sounds like. Kind of like how I know what Latin math sounds like, even though I don't necessarily know what the Latin math words mean, or I can still recognize them, and I would know if someone mistranslated.
Yeah, like why are they
something
saying
there.
God has mercy on you? Like,
yeah, but it didn't occur to me that wasn't. It didn't even occur to me that it wasn't like part of a ritual, like a ritual phrase.
It sounded like
And,
it was.
J Hold wouldn't have known because he doesn't care.
Right.
They trade the goat skins, and Naldani just immediately throw it on the fire. I was trying to figure out, is that the ceremony, or are they just like, yeah, okay, that's done. Let's enjoy ourselves now.
Yeah.
Kind of that. I thought that was funny too, kind of showing this, like, the Imperials going out of their way to treat this as this ceremonial, traditional thing sacred to these people, and the people themselves are like, you are blowing this up differently than how we do it, so we're just gonna do your thing, and thanks for the thing, and then they just kind of hand him the goat skin, and they do this to the sun,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, we're trying to be this ceremonial, respectful, and the Aldani are like, what are you doing? Just give me the
rolling their
thing,
eyes.
hold this.
Like, don't try to act like you're giving us throwing us a bone here, like you're have invaded our home, and
Yeah.
Speaking about
I did
Gorn,
find
actually-
the I don't, was it this episode or was it last episode where they talked about how they essentially kind of lured locals away from their own culture by propping up Imperial like markets and jobs, and it just so that's such a realistic view of what colonialism ends up doing. It's like, it's not just extermination and genocide, it's also erasure of culture by replacing it with things that ultimately that can, just by sheer commerce and capitalism, can just can lure people away from their culture and replace it. I thought that was poignant.
Yeah.
Extremely, extremely. And how it really culled, the citizen, it really worked. And just the way, J-Hold relishing in that explanation, speaking of dirty work, like, this is dirty work, but it's slow dirty work, so that you don't have to actually see someone get shot. You don't have to, like, with your own hand, kill a bunch of people. It's sort of just like this very relatable, like, colonial, like, sentiment, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is kind of people under capitalism as well in a way, right? Like, it's just the slow squeezing out, just the taking away options, replacing them with other things. And then, to go back to Nemec's conversation about his, astral navigator, it's an old piece of tech, so it's not like you have to take it to the Apple Genius Bar to get it fixed, to get it working. It doesn't have to be jailbroken,
It reminds me musically, actually, what happens across the globe with the ubiquitous nature of Western pop music, and also the 12 semitone nature of DAWs as well.
For sure.
Where it's like impossible to implement cultural microtonal music, almost impossible, or like extremely inconvenient to try to make like anything that has microtones or anything that has well-tempered music, just because of just the all these DAWs come out, and like people actually think that there's only 12
DAWs,
notes
just
in
pianos.
music. Yeah. Well, yeah, pianos too, yeah. But I'm just talking about, like, pianos can only make it so far across the globe, right? But now, like, computers are, like, the ultimate, right? It's like, now if you want to make music these days, you got to download one of these DAWs, and if you want, and so many people are now making music that has only got 12 frequencies to it, and it's all well-tempered, and it's replaced some of the idiomatic, non-Western scaled music across the globe, just because of it's like it's musical colonialism is what it is.
I mean, it's funny because even in like the synthesizer world, where theoretically you could create any sound you wanted at any pitch and any frequency, I'm still limited to the 12 semitones of MIDI. Right. Even if I retune stuff, I'm still have to.
Yeah, and then you got to retune it by hand every single time, right?
And
like, it's just completely out of the. Yeah.
Which is, I guess, what samplers are for. But at that point, then just get the musician to come play.
Right.
I think. Oh, sorry. Sometimes I can't tell when people are done or not.
No, this is just a jump in and then
just jump
interrupt
in.
each other type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really
dog
astute, James. It's dog eat dog everywhere. We're in a place. The place we are is not unrelated to the Empire. But I think that's really astute, James, what you were just talking about the 12 semitones and about how difficult it is to do anything that's a microtone between the semitones or even just a retune. And if you retune, you're still stuck with 12. And I see that as going back to, this is always what I do, is trying to like, how can I make this really related to the theme of the show? It's because the Empire is all about order. And similarly, 12 semitones is a very ordered series of binary things where you're either on C or you're on C sharp. There's nothing between those. And then it's another binary from C sharp to D. It's just those two. And then we've got the Andor, this Andor stack that happens to be like that creates so many what am I trying to say? Overtones, different kinds of interesting beating between the notes that it's kind of, there's no way to have a stack and have it still be 100% within that binary tonal situation. Binary is not really the word there, but within that 12 tone scale because of the interactions between all the notes that cause things. Whereas a lot of the other music and, that we've, a lot of the Star Wars music is, it's tonal and it stays within chords and it's not often too crazy.
Which is something fun about, this series is that we have this like oscillating theme that keeps coming back. This like semi-pitch kind of coming in and which has been kind of an interesting, like, how prominent that's been. Because I feel, in my listening experience, a lot of those kinds of effects come in, like, very briefly. If it's, like, a horror scene in a movie, like, you'll get this, or, like, vertigo. Yeah. It's, like, trying to, like...
And visually, too. You'll see glitchy.
Exactly. That'll happen. But this is, like, they're really using this as, like, a theme. Like a really like solid musical statement for this score, which is fascinating, and it comes in really great in this episode when Lieutenant Gorn comes down to the heist, and J-Hold has this realization that Gorn's been behind it the whole time. That bendy thing just comes in nice and loud, and you get this. It's this like weird, all the whole time kind of a thing moment. And this like unnerving music that's been like used in so many like great sequences in this already, and it's funny how versatile it's been. And not just been this like kind of one-trick pony. And here comes this character, so let's play the thing. It reminds me almost of the, if you're a fan of the first season or any of the seasons of Stranger Things, in the first season, the Demogorgon, the big bad creature thing, its theme also does that. It's these like, nah, 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 nah. Like it's just these notes that play. But the scale is like slowly doing this the entire time. But that's like anytime the Demogorgon is there, that's what kind of appears. Where they're using this kind of like unnatural, unwavering theme, like all sorts of places, which is really, really cool.
It is cool.
Yeah, to varying degrees as well. Like sometimes it's
And
like so subtle that you're like, did I just? Okay, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. It is bending. Oh yeah, it is.
And sometimes
And
they've even applied it to the
Donnie
whole
don't
soundtrack.
have. They're not tuned either. Like their singing is not. I mean, I auto-tuned my voice for that example that I made, because I got nervous. Like, this is gonna be on the internet. But in the score, they're nice and natural, and they're singing in ways that aren't perfect. Sometimes that and actually that
Just get
very
humans singing
often
Happy Birthday.
happens. What'd you say?
So just get anyone to sing, any group of people to sing Happy Birthday.
Yeah. Well, no, but this was like, this is idiomatic, culturally
For sure.
non-temper. This wasn't, they weren't singing out of tune because they weren't, trained or whatever.
But we also,
I mean, there are lots of, like, here's the thing. And this happens all the time. And we talked about a little bit about drums last week, about like drums not being accurately represented in cultural music oftentimes. Singing all the time, like so many movie soundtracks, when they're set anywhere else, they'll make the voices all perfectly tuned to A440 and to a tempered scale, when it's like, that's not what that music sounds like, dude. Like, that's, I watched a movie recently. I'm not gonna put them on blast, but
it's the same one you brought up last week.
yeah, it's the last
Okay.
one I brought up last week cryptically. And all the vocal work in that was like all super tuned to very clearly like tuned after the fact, and it's like, that's not what that music sounds like.
So here, okay, so here's like a counterpoint, not a counterpoint to that, not a counterpoint, just like another facet of that, which is like,
Yeah.
because of, like, imagine if that soundtrack were released and it was not set to it was not like auto-tuned, it was not snapped to the grid, so to speak. In contrast to the rest of the music out there that people are comparing it to and expecting it to be like, which even within the Western tonals, like even within the Western system of tuning, everything already is hyper corrected. Like if you think even just like what we think of just as live classical recordings, like some of those live classical recordings are like 100 takes spliced together, like, and so it's kind of like brings into question, like, would it have been lazy to not give, I don't know, everyone the same sort of polish, to be able to, it's like you get a few different applicants, and even on like these quote unquote blind composer competitions where you submit a score, you don't put your name on it or whatever, people can still tell what your level of education is based on the preparation of your score, how it looks, and just basic certain things about it that are just, and it's totally not fair, and it totally, of course, ruins, like, it definitely like limits you in terms of the diversity of expression, the diversity of voices that you're going to let in, and and so you could say it's I'm not looking at names, and I'm not looking at their education levels, but there are just certain clues that are just not even that you don't even have to say. They're just spoken. So like in that case,
But
a
I
lot
think
of
preparation. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I mean-
preparation of a score is very different than a musically aesthetic, or like a pitch. Like it's like saying like not I didn't quantize the Brazilian swing of this drum part.
For sure,
because
for
that's
sure.
that's the style of the swing. Like it's not quantized. It's not equal to a grid. That's how the music is.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, but like I said,
But I-
I'm not arguing with you whatsoever. Like
Yeah,
I
I know what
think
you're
it's just a
saying,
separate
though.
facet of just like, well, if we're
People's-
going to be lazy and not apply the same, polish,
But I guess that inherent like there
for sure, inherently is like that it needs polish or.
Yeah, it's like people think that non-Western things are not polished. Is
Well-
basically where the problem is, right?
That's kind of not what I'm saying though.
I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying
Yeah.
that people think that though. Like people think that when something is quote unquote out of tune, they think it's out of tune.
Well, if
But
it's not brought
instead
up to
of,
the
like-
same mastering standard, if it's not brought up to if it's not brought up to be on par in some respects. Now, I'm not saying you should go super far and like start correcting things and like start hyper correcting things, but I feel like hearing something that sounds for even just like a living room demo versus like a professionally recorded like studio single or whatever, like I feel like there's obviously a discrepancy in the level of production there, and if you bring up the production level of the bedroom, garage band, whatever, living room with demo, you are going to lose you're going to lose things about it as well. Like you just can't there's no like perfect way to handle that. You're just always going to be, I don't know what I'm saying. I've kind of trailed off.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
things.
There-
I don't know. I don't
There's a
think
word
tuning.
that-
Yeah. Go ahead, Christina.
A word that really came to mind while both of you were talking was the word protocols, which is that I think what you were saying, Xanthe, about the scores and how when you look at a score, you can immediately tell the education level of the person who prepared it. It's because you can see whether or not they happen to know all the protocols that you could only know if you were taught them. That are totally obviously not intuitive to somebody who didn't have them. And at the same time, that can factor in. And so you were saying that that's like a facet of what we're talking about. And so we can take that concept of the protocols to other areas and say, like, okay, well, the protocol for the Empire, the protocol for Brazilian music, the protocol for
Film music,
and what
for a
we're
film
and
soundtrack.
kind of what we're saying is, yeah, like the protocol for like colonized Western music that has colonized other things is that you have to get it to the 12 tones and you have to get it to A440. That's the protocol. And so the question is like, do you meet that protocol? Do you not meet that protocol if your music, doesn't initially follow that?
Right.
Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's just tricky.
Maybe.
It's so tricky. Existential crisis in my head. Hey, Blue Pig, good to see you. By the way,
Yeah,
James
come on,
is like,
Blue Pig.
do you even think? Don't have
you-
have a way to use Patreon. So sorry, I won't be on that Discord. Glad I can catch a stream though. Glad you could catch a stream.
What did you say, Sam?
Yeah.
What did I say? Oh, I
You
said.
said.
Oh, I said you're deep in thought or something.
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to decipher what you're saying because you keep likening like tuning things to a Western scale to like it having a higher production value.
No,
And
no.
I'm trying to.
No, yeah,
Okay.
no. I'm not necessarily saying. No, I'm not necessarily speaking of that. But like you also mentioned
Okay.
quantizing, and you also mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm not directly speaking to your point. I'm just speaking in. I can't remember exactly at what point. Like you said something specific that I latched onto, and I can't remember exactly what that latch point was.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not disagreeing with you. Like I think like snapping everything to the grid, I think is like one of my least favorite things in like commercial music. We had a whole thing we were talking about it last week. No, for sure. Like I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Oh, this is
I think it's like
interesting.
some people get distracted by a lack. Some people get distracted by a lack of. Polish is not the right word. a lack of something being. Some people get distracted by differences that are not necessarily just differences in the music itself, the composition itself, but are differences in like the equivalent of the score preparation, like, and that can be, and when people are, and I guess we don't always know when we're receiving input and we're having a feeling about it. We don't always know what parameters, like what exact factors of that thing, multifaceted thing, are what made our brain discard it in a certain way. Like we're not exactly sure. So like we can say, oh, they don't like microtonal music, like they don't like music that doesn't fit in 12 tones. We could think that, but it could also be maybe there's a different parameter that did it. It's just unless you actually like run an experiment, do a test, you can't know for sure. And so I think a lot of the times things like this will happen, and it will sort of get not rigorously misconstrued as like, for example, in Little Mermaid, like, oh, we just don't like anyone who doesn't like Halle Bailey's
Bailey. No,
casting. That means that they're anti-black, and which there could be many other reasons they don't like that casting, but that's an easy answer. And in my head, these two things are very related, but
no, they are related,
Yeah.
and I just think it's a slippery slope if you start to
always.
I don't know. I think that's the point. Is like, yeah, you could come up with another number of reasons why somebody doesn't want to hear like Persian classical music, right? Could be the way that it was recorded. It could be like the whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that this is some of the reasons why we never get to hear the music. Like that music doesn't get to be put on our, get the spotlight, get the its voice, is because you can come up with a million reasons why it's not racism, right?
Well, that's where I lose you, because I don't think
mean,
it's a top
yeah.
down. I don't think it's a top down reaction. I think the explanations are top down, the justifications.
Justifications are top down. What do you mean by that?
Like I agree that because of these subconscious biases and things that we're uncomfortable with, that we aren't even aware of what they are, so we can't necessarily adequately buffer against them and fortify those areas that we're less strong in. They impact us in a way that makes us discount things that feel foreign, and that's obviously very unfortunate. And it would be better if we could isolate the things that are holding us back, so that we could work on exposure to them and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think the initial rejection of them isn't primarily top down. I think it's primarily just so subconscious, like, no, that's not for me. Like, I think it's so subconscious that we don't even realize we're doing it, which is like why bias is so like insidious, right? Because we don't even know, we can't even really buffer against it. Yeah.
I think it's automated, really. It's like, does this conform to what I perceive as normal, or does this not conform to what I perceive as normal? And you can immediately tell everything that does or does not fall into those two categories. And then from there, it's not a far jump at all to say, well, because it's not normal, I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah. And it would be better if, obviously, it would be better if if it weren't so, I think it would be better if people were somehow motivated to have multiple exposures to think, like if people weren't just given one chance, because I think it's normal to reject something on your first try. I think it's very normal. I don't think it means like it doesn't have to mean anything, but the way that things feel more normal and enjoyable is through the repetition of them, and through multiple exposures, or especially in just to hear it more, have more opportunities. And I think like probably the most important thing, rather than just like exposing yourself to this kind of music or exposing yourself to that kind of music, like I think probably the thing that would have the biggest impact on anyone listening to any music would be to force yourself to sit through 2 minutes of discomfort listening to something, like just get through it, you know, and
Well, in addition to that, it should
to
have
be
some
okay
context,
listening
too.
to things, even if internally you can't make sense of it, like it's uncomfortable. You want to turn it off if you're listening to Alan, Berg, even, we can even think in Western music, like if you're thinking, lots of Wozzeck, that's not going to be comfortable to sit through.
You should have context too and some education behind what you're hearing too. On top
I know,
of
but
that, right?
these things are so bottom up that, like, even if you have all the education in the world, if you on paper respect it, understand it, but you can't internally sit with it, then what good is all your, like,
Well, yeah, you're not going to be able to
intellectual-
learn about something unless you actually listen to it, though, right? So
yeah. Anyway, good discussion.
solid.
Yeah,
I've got an off-topic transitional question.
great.
Did we talk about our favorite Imperial commander dude, the leader of this family? Did we talk about him like pushing those crates of those carts of gold and putting all his effort and then having a heart attack when
That
he
was
realizes
kinda-
that? Sorry, and I feel a little bad for laughing about it, but I do feel that was pretty satisfying. It was like.
Payoff from his. I mean, they kind of make a point that he's kind of let himself go a little bit physically.
Oh, yeah, but I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well, if anything, is finally he has to do some physical work after perhaps climbing from those ranks of never having to do that again, or perhaps never had to.
I mean, yeah, I get the sense that he doesn't do dirty work of any sort.
Exactly.
Right,
So
right,
now he
right.
has to kind of do that, which I find interesting. Actually, also a question relating to this scene or sequence of scenes. Did Gorn survive? Did he get on the ship? I thought he got on the ship.
We
No.
didn't
'Cause
see
he's
him
like,
die.
"Let's
He
get
didn't
it,
get on the
let's
ship.
go." He didn't.
He didn't get on the ship, but we didn't see him die like officially.
Yeah, I
see
think we
him
saw him
get
fall
shot,
down.
He must
but
have
we
fallen-
didn't
'cause
see
we
him.
made a point to show Tamron die. We made a point to show that Xanthe, who they left behind, I don't know what's gonna happen to Xanthe. They just kind of left. That was the plan, I guess, was to leave Xanthe.
I don't think Gorn's
that's
dead.
kind of-
I think he's
so,
gonna be alive and captured.
Yeah, I imagine he's gonna. I mean, who knows? They kind of got. I don't know if he can get out. If he did survive, if he can like get out before they capture him, or if anybody knows beyond that revelation, like anyone in that room that knew that he was like a traitor to the Imperial army.
I don't think
they
they
all
would
got
let him
shot.
be captured.
I think they all got shot.
Yeah, I think it's important that he either dies or doesn't get captured, or something good happens and he actually escapes. Because I think that if the Imperials had a chance to interrogate him, like they can interrogate. It's not like they have to ask you questions and you have to answer them. They just like kind of like read your brain, right? Like, isn't that kind of how it works? Like they have that horrible device that
Oh,
they
you mean the
Truth
probe?
serum,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like the brain probe thing. Like you don't really like just the fact that you're alive means that whatever you know and whoever you've communicated with, like
They have Vader.
he would implicate everyone else in the plan.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking that like
I guess it would be a weird
but-
plot point for this show.
Maybe we get to see the origin of what's it?
Borgullet?
Solace? Yeah, Borgullet.
Gorgullet. But here's the thing: is that I don't think they would have killed Gorn off screen and not shown him.
But they
yeah.
I think
die.
he's
Like,
dead.
They would. I might bet you a significant amount of money that he's not.
Okay.
I think he's hiding somewhere.
Disneyland?
I mean, he might die eventually, but they showed the other the one that was a stormtrooper, right?
Yeah,
They showed his
him
body
get
on the
shot.
ground, dead.
Yeah.
They showed Skeen get very clearly killed, and they showed Kennec get very clearly killed.
Never.
But they did not devote a scene to a major character that we've had in multiple episodes. From a filmmaking standpoint, that's a poor choice to not show him actually die on screen unless he is not dead. So
Yeah, well,
we
they
see
did
him
show him
fall.
get shot, and we saw him fall. And what you're saying, James, is in Star Wars logic, that could just mean you just fell.
Yeah, but I agree in Star Wars logic, but also just like if you set up a character that important for like you give that person a confirmation of death scene, right?
Do you,
don't
though?
just like show. Yeah.
You would.
do. So
we don't know
again,
that.
I'd be happy next episode or the end of the season.
Okay, we'll see if James is right.
Yeah, we'll do. Was James arrogantly incorrect? But I would be shocked if that's the way that they killed him off in this show.
All right.
Just
Well, that's an interesting take. I'll
bring us all to Disneyland if he's dead.
Yay.
And these damn guards aren't stormtroopers, so they could actually hit something. They were pretty. The one who intercepted the message. Oh my God! I just had like such a sinking feeling when he was intercepting that message. I was like, oh no. And then Gorn's sort of like, I'm giving you a direct order, and I'm like, oh no, this is where his authority is dying.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
They were like, what's going on here? That was a tense scene.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was a very tense scene. And I gotta say, of the many and billions of blaster fights that we've had in Star Wars, sound-wise, that was such a cool fight.
We do have to talk about the blasters.
If you closed your eyes and just listened to the blasters in this scene, you hear, I heard weight to them. They weren't just a beam of light coming to hit me, kind of they had some projectile to them. There's variation, so it wasn't the same 3 samples over and over and over again. They had such great, if you listen to it with headphones, you hear such great panning of these shots just flying around and hitting different things, these different dissipation sounds. I don't know, it was just a really well designed laser battle, for lack of better terms. One of the cooler ones I think I've
Chat
heard.
is hilarious right now. Diad says, I would assume we all learned our lesson about unconfirmed death in Star Wars. Point.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a prisoner in the next episode, or come back with spider legs.
Yeah.
What the spider legs?
Oh God. I want to read something that Ender said on Discord, which was, and I want to get your take on it because it's about the blasters. So he said, the blaster sounds are the most different here than they are in any Imperial era show or movie. Rogue One was close to this, but this pushes the envelope. I think they are going for a more grounded sound by de-emphasizing the tonal aspect of the sound and instead leaning into the percussive elements. And so, yeah, what did you think of that?
I hear what Ender is saying. They really stuck out as very different to me. That's why it was so fascinating, because we've seen clone troopers and armies of droids and just clouds of laser blasts. We've heard TIE fighter blasts, and they're very distinct, very repetitive sound. We've heard just even in these first episodes, the Cassian's blaster and things like that. But these blasters were very, very like they were saying, realistic, and trying to use a different word other than realistic, because what does that mean? They're laser blasters.
You totally. This is
what
exactly
what does that mean? What does a dinosaur sound like? Real? You know what I mean? It's how do we make that sound realistic? But these laser blasters, they had impact. Maybe not percussive elements, but I see what you mean by percussive. They had impact.
So Ender's in the chat, Auric Fonts. And so I'm going to read more of his chat, which said, I interpret that artistic choice as perhaps trying to reimagine what they actually sound like versus how they sound in movies. In universe, they went out and recorded actual blasters and TIE fighters, which I think is
they did
an interesting
a better job at
worldizing
the blasters and the choir.
Well, I think it hammers home something that I was a little bit not
he doesn't think he
skeptical
liked
of
it.
the show. Which
Fair.
was when they were announced the show as being this espionage war thriller, right? I was like, that's interesting. It's hard for me to imagine considering like there's so many rules in Star Wars that or there's so many rules in real life espionage and war that don't apply in Star Wars, right? Because there's like how
what?
do you make the stakes really, really tense when like there's like magical Bacta medicine and there's like, you know, any type of device that you can just use to hack in instantly all the time, and like, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much technology and things that they can just like, you know, like Deus Ex Machina, like kind of just like put it in there, right? And like, so I think for me, like seeing how realistic they've portrayed everything helps me feel scared for them in real ways, right? Because I'm not like, and especially the way that they've just been killing off main characters. Like they killed off the jealous jerk boyfriend in the first arc. They killed off like most of the team in this episode. So now they've really convinced me like, oh, like the stakes are real. Like here, the blasters sound real. They look real. Everything like there's a, and even though you could even wasn't what's his name? Manifesto Boy. Streetlight Manifesto was saying wasn't he saying they had some device where he's like, this is all we're gonna have once we're like, you know, the radio was barely working that they were using, right? It's like they've just set up these little things that basically say like, hey, we actually have real limitations to our technology, to our medicine. Yeah. Is this the first time besides Padme that we've seen a medical scene in Star Wars that didn't result in the person being magically healed, right?
Right.
Like and he had like Dr. Octopus working on him, you know?
Yeah.
So by the way, I want to see a drama about a human that goes into the Star Wars medical field and is like facing discrimination because there's never any human doctors in Star Wars. It's always like somebody with like 5 legs, a robot, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? There's like never just like a normal, sorry, not normal, excuse me. Sorry.
You know what I mean.
I don't want to be
You know what you mean.
Insensitive toward. Yeah.
It'll be a Dr. Octavius crossover.
Right.
So
I mean,
anyway,
where was Thundercat when you needed him?
I know.
Right?
Where was Thundercat
Just
when
give
you
him
needed
new
him?
guts. Just build
I
him a
was
new
hoping
stomach.
that I know a doctor. It's on the outskirts, and it was just like.
Oh no, we
Thundercat
can't get
was
a
just gonna
Tatooine right now.
appear.
So yeah, I just think that the realistic blasters, all the stuff, it all adds to this like, actually I'm worried about things in this show, and I'm not just like, you know.
I agree with your feeling. Where I felt really tense, I felt like I normally don't like heist movies. I'm normally not interested in them. And I was very interested in this, not because I understood what they, and it's not even, I didn't even understand the intricacies of their plan. I never do. Never will.
Right.
But I cared about them, and could, like, there were all those subtle hints, like Vel taking forever to just call it, you know, and, you know, the acting, I don't know, just all of these things were all contributing to me feeling like, okay, well, I care about this one. This is one that I care about. I'm not sure that realistic blaster sounds, or I'm not sure to what extent the realistic sound design played into that as well. Like, it may have. I guess it would be best if an alternate version of me could go back and watch this and have everything the same except just the sounds. Yeah, and to see if it would still have had that effect. I think it may have, because I have also, you know, I have felt very invested in, you know, a lot of Star Wars as well, even with those blaster sounds that are very, you know, trademark Star Wars. I don't think that would have taken me out, but I guess I don't know where I'm going with. I guess I agree with you. I mean, I felt the same way. I was very tense. Not sure the blaster sounds contributed, but they may have, but they may not have.
But if anything, yeah, what was cool is that they were different. And I understand, like, you know, invested in all this other Star Wars with the same blaster sound over again, or same variation of blaster sounds kinds of a thing. Had they just done that in this episode, we wouldn't have noticed. But the fact that it was different, whether that was like we are distinctly going to do this for these reasons, or like, hey, let's try something else. You know, who knows? You know,
well, if I'm a director and this is my general ambiance I'm trying to create with this show, I wouldn't stop at the blaster sounds. You know what I mean? Like if I'm creating like technological limitations from the radios that they're using to the the exploration of their family dynamics, and if I'm going that deep on every level, I'm not gonna be like, okay, but let's not make the blaster sound weighty and realistic.
For me, I think it depends on if it's the same models of blasters or not. If it's not the same types of blasters, then I am
sure. Yeah.
Then I agree. Then like I'm willing to hear any kind of blaster sound, though I can see. I'm not a weapons expert, so like I have no idea. Like I don't know if I know that a lot of the guns looked like Earth guns, not necessarily blasters, but I do think in this episode, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing some blasters. I just don't know if it was like the same kind of blasters. I do think that is a little bit. I think that's a gray area.
Yeah.
TIE fighter blasters sounded the exact same though. Okay.
Maybe that goes into what you're saying, Xanthe, like seeing different blasters. So of course they would have a different sound, but the TIE fighters, they would have been fitted with the same things.
Yeah.
The sound the same.
Oh, Jonah, good
Where
observation.
all these blasters that we've been seeing in the show, like I feel like have been so different. And they're like, and what Cassian's holding and what the rebels are holding, they almost look like I'm not a gun expert, but like they almost look like some sort of, AK-47.
I was just going to say, did we get to see the AK fire in the show yet?
It felt like
were they using the AKs in this mission? Because I was really curious about that, because that thing looked exactly just like a straight up AK-47.
Yeah,
like the guy
and
he walks up to the camp and the guy's just got a freaking actual AK, which I thought was
like the second time they've kind of done this, where it's like it's looked so distinctly like something. The other one I always laugh about is back in the good old days of Boba Fett, when they showed up with like Tommy guns, like old Italian gangster Tommy gun kind of a thing.
Right?
You're like,
that's like,
what is the purpose
like in
of
Rise of Skywalker, the guy
that
that makes his mask is just like a chimp. He's just like a regular monkey, and like in Rise of Skywalker, you're like, huh, that's interesting.
I feel like it's kind of funny. Not that I'm gonna really rationalize where that's going, but like the Tommy guns in Mandalorian, like the Mandalorian, I feel like it probably was just a directorial choice where it was like, okay, we're going for this Western vibe. Let's use the type of guns I immediately think of, or kind of immediately think of, but in a different context.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, totally. And I also
if you
love
view it from
that
the front, it's like they got a circle thing.
Oh yeah, you can see the circle. I love that AK is just so normalized in our culture that we can just list, like, you see them AKs,
Right.
like, and we all know what you're talking about, despite the fact that, as far as I know, none
dystopia.
of us are like real gun, like actually know what's up with guns. But yeah, I do see. I mean, the thing that we noticed here was that the blaster fire was a little more realistic in a way, is that's kind of like the point that's made with the blaster fire. So then going back to that whole, like, okay, it's just a director choice trying to do as many things as can be done to create this ethos of a more realistic world, where instead of and I see that in a few places. Like, I see there's the blaster sounds. There's also Cassian's facial hair. Like, he's not perfect. No one in this show is perfect looking, except in the whole Imperial Mon Mothma segment.
Like High Society.
Everybody there, High Society, kind of has this weird perfect situation going, but like the Rebel, I mean, like, they're not and there's nothing here where they're made to look prettier than they are. It's all very realistic, quote quote, and kind of the same thing, and that's just kind of going back to the working class thing too, I think, like trying to show a different part of Star Wars than we've seen, because Luke and Leia are obviously like incredibly privileged.
It reminds me of the Mark Hamill story where he talks about like Harrison Ford, his conversation where they were filming A New Hope, and he's getting out of the trash compactor scene, and he's like, but my hair was wet from there and now it's dry. Isn't that a continuity error? And then like Harrison Ford's like, it's not that type of movie, kid. Like, if they're worried about your hair, then we're all in very big trouble. That's what Harrison Ford says, right? Which is funny because this show is like, this is like the antithesis of that, because it's like It's like almost like if we're all worried about, like, we kind of are worried about whether their hair looks realistic and when they set the bar at this level, you know, it kind of is that type of show. But yeah, that's the Harrison Ford thing, which is like
Hair.
they were like,
Harrison.
yeah,
Harrison
oh,
good one.
Okay, Arakvon says the radio sound was from scenes at Echo Base, and it made me draw an equivalency between the
Yes.
old tech here and what they must be using on Hoth. Totally.
Yes, thank you for bringing
Tony
that up.
Gilroy
I
is a
wanted to-
nerd.
Yeah, I wanted to say that his navigational unit sounded like something we've heard before, and I got brought back to like the probe droids from Hoth, but I knew that wasn't it. I knew that it wasn't those, but yeah, Hoth. the whole
Definitely
kind
brought me
of
back to
thing,
Hoth as
totally.
well. For sure.
It's funny.
Liked that.
And I guess I'm not exactly sure what the workflow is on the show, since Tony Gilroy is like obviously the creator, but wasn't the director for this arc, and so I'm just curious how many of these decisions are top level and how much are sort of
No,
per director.
I don't think so. I just every week I keep laughing about how many like nerd throwbacks there are in the show and how much Tony Gilroy keeps telling the press that there's no Easter eggs or whatever in this show, and we keep finding more and more and more every single week. So obviously he probably had nothing to do with the sound design choice, but
I don't know.
I mean,
I'm sure
I
I'd
would
have to
think
run
so.
through him at some point.
You think
But
so?
but
Yeah.
maybe at what point is it an Easter egg or a continuity?
Yeah. I mean,
You know, like yeah, I mean, we can
That,
get
that's
into that,
usually
but,
what
like,
people
I
that
think it's funny
defend
too, though.
like crazy Easter eggs say. You know, they're like, well, it would make sense that Cad Bane would be like still doing the thing. You're like, they kind of put him in that show because we want to see Cad Bane. You know?
Yeah, it makes sense that Maz had Luke Skywalker for no reason in a story that we never got to see.
Right.
It makes sense.
It makes sense that that's so funny. It's kind of made sense that Leia just was carrying around the medal or whatever, like from A New Hope, like in her pocket, ready to like give to Chewie at some point or whatever it was, like and from Rise of Skywalker. It makes
Well,
sense.
it does. I mean, well, it can.
Xanthe
I know,
Yes,
we're-
it
we're
does
just-
make sense.
No, I mean, I think also in term with Han's silly dice, like I think it
Yeah,
does
I
make
know.
sense to carry around like a talisman.
But it's like it's very okay.
It's very
I get what you're
It's
saying.
very clearly like a fan service
Super
moment, but yes, we could make it make
So here's the
sense.
thing, like I don't think Tony Gilroy was like, okay, you know those sounds that were on Hoth, that's what I want, but I feel like he could
I don't think I would say yes to that question either. I'd be like, I think I know what sounds you're talking about, but
I think he
don't-
like it.
I do know.
I can conceive, not saying this is what happens, but I can conceive that he, is like, oh, I want this to symbolize like old technology, and I want this to be something with this kind of vibe, and then the Star Wars story group or whatever, Lucasfilm story group or whatever, fill it in with like the appropriate thing that can match that overall intent. So,
oh yeah.
yeah, and even with Luthen's shop, like, he's not like, make sure you put a Jedi and a Sith holocron next to each other and then put like something from Mandalorian and put something from, I don't think, obviously not, but like, I think he's like, this should be a shop full of, like, I don't think he's fooled for 1 second. I don't think he thinks for 1 second that, the craft department or whatever just made random objects for there. I think he's just like, all right, you guys fill it in with stuff.
Yeah, in my mind, I like the idea that Tony Gilroy is this like ripped jock kind of guy on set, and he keeps like talking down to all the Star Wars nerds on set. He's like, "Why don't you nerds just put some nerd shit over there?" And like then they're all like, "Yeah," and they're like decorating the set.
And
You know
then
what I mean?
we fans go, "Oh my God, it's the thing from
Yeah.
the thing!" And Tony
Yeah,
Gilroy's
eat
like,
this,
yeah,
you nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Tony Gilroy is doing. I'm trying.
Totally. Accurate.
This all makes sense, doesn't it?
So, okay, one thing that's at the very, very beginning of the episode, first of all, just the nervousness nervousness was just the name of the game at the beginning here, right? They've been nervous since last episode. They've been in anticipation for this event. And let's see, am I thinking, was it the very, very beginning? Well, I'm thinking specifically of like at least the first scene on Aldhani. We hear this like ambient cicada type of cicadas, crickets.
Yeah, we had a lot of cicadas in the last couple episodes in like the fields of Aldhani,
Yeah. So,
which I love cicada sounds.
and it kind of just like, I don't know, heightens the anxiety a little bit, because it's the sort of thing where like, much like anxiety, you don't always realize when it's like coming on. You don't always realize when it's there. But it's there, and you're just working with it there. You know, it just becomes part of the ambiance. It's part of the baseline. It's like your new baseline. Is this loud, actually pretty loud cicada sound?
Yeah.
But for silence.
Dude, there's not another YouTube channel on the internet talking about the cicadas. And
Cicadas of
Andor
Aldhani.
episode 6. There's
Cicadas.
Well, now there is. Thanks for giving it. Thanks for encouraging competition. It's a competitive market out here.
Oh no.
Dog eats dog.
It's a dog eat dog.
It's
I
cicada
can't
eat
have someone else
cicada out
talking
here.
about cicadas.
Bug eat bug.
It's bug eat bug out here.
There's always- there's
I
always a
need
bigger
Bug eat bug.
I love Synthesizing.
I want to know more about.
Synthe's
Synthesizing.
great.
Yeah, she's hardcore, dude.
She's so hardcore.
And I really want to know what the decision was to like leave her, and she's gonna slowly walk into the distance dressed as a Imperial person, you know. Like
I
don't
think
know.
she
It
got
was
behind a
unclear.
rock
Just
and
kinda-
changed.
Just kind of
I
like.
think she changed clothes behind a rock or something.
Right.
I would so like to be her in this mission. Oh my god.
Synta?
Like, yeah.
Why?
She
So hard
gets-
job.
I mean, yeah, but she got to like kind of exit kind of smoothly, I think, you know, like, or
You
like,
think?
After
Yeah.
like para jumping off of a damn.
I don't know, but she's like, I feel like she wasn't in like as much like she wasn't in as much fire, right? Like, she didn't have many, right? She kind of got to fly below the radar a little bit more.
A little bit more. Yeah, she was on point.
Like, she wasn't part
Wasn't
of the
she like
firefight.
massacring a lot of people?
She
No.
was.
Well, we
but
don't
then
know
she
for
got
sure.
to-
She was just holding hostage, you know, the family with.
What do
those
you think she did with the
futuristic
hostages?
Those futuristic.
Oh yeah, what do we think she did with the
Gags.
hostages?
I think she left
think
them
she
because
left
there
them
was the
there.
scene where
Yeah.
they're all watching the ship fly away and the eye, and they're all like terrified, and she had already left, I think.
Do you
I
think it
just
was
remember
always their
doing
plan to
stuff
leave
with
her?
my friends when I was a kid, like that we weren't supposed to be doing, and I always liked to be the guy that like didn't really have to. Like, if we were gonna like, let's go explore this abandoned building, I'd be like, why don't I be the guy that like waits outside for a little bit?
That's the most important job, James.
I was like always the note taker. Like, I'll be the one that
Yeah.
writes the thing. I did
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah.
I did like that Synta, the healer, turned out to be the most bloodthirsty one.
Oh, that's true.
So
Yeah.
we do think
Is she the most
bloodthirst.
bloodthirsty or the most well trained? Like, it seems to me just like when she just seems like so skilled in martial arts and healing and all sorts of things that when she does them, she does them. Like, she doesn't have that hesitation. She's like, it's time, we've got to go, Val.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we learned.
yeah,
that,
when she shoots like someone.
Yeah, we learned that stormtroopers wiped out her entire family, so she's probably the most determined, like revenge driven in a way. Now that we speculate that Skeen may or may not have had a brother.
That's true.
Kind
Oh.
of thing.
That made me remember that. Oh, sorry.
No,
when
no,
Skeen
go
says he doesn't have a brother, I think there's also, it could be a shade of meaning to that it could be that like his brother's dead. The Empire took his brother from him. He doesn't have a brother anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be
I just
that
thought
too.
I would say that like in terms of believing Skeen to like maybe have had the brother, and
I believe that he
maybe-
had the brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that he had the brother and was either saying like, I don't have a brother anymore, so like I'm not going to dwell on that, like, or like what Justin and I were talking about toward the beginning, which was like, if we do this, then basically for 8 million, however many, 20 million credit, I don't remember exactly, 40 million credits. I can be whatever name, have whatever backstory you want. Like,
Yeah.
I do like. Sorry, this is off topic of what we're saying, but I do like how we don't really know much about Star Wars currency, so like they can just like any number, like they just have to like inflate the number as much as possible, so we know like this is a lot of money, like 40 million. It's kind of like that Rick and Morty, like 54 schmeckles, like, you know, it's like you don't really know what this money means, but
40
like,
in our comparison, 40 million credits in Imperial credits could be like $100 to us.
right. Who knows?
We don't know, but it makes sense that, you know, we would assume
Yeah, I agree.
it's a somewhat 1-to-1 or 10-to-1 value.
well, we certainly don't know the credits to US dollar conversion, but I feel like there are some
Internet thing.
clues throughout Star Wars where one could be like, oh, okay, here they mention,
Right.
I don't know, I can't remember. In Solo, I know they mentioned
Adjusted
No,
for
quite.
inflation, of course, you know.
You're right. So like money is mentioned, and so we can, I guess, compare things in that way. Although, you know, when money is offered for like things like bounty or things, it still is hard to compare because that is also so like that kind of price is very dependent on, you know, the bounty and the bounty hunter, and so it's not like. So I think having a price list of common items that people purchase would help put it in perspective for sure. Now, what I do hear people.
Yes, Auric Fonts is echoing exactly what I was saying earlier today. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll get back to that point in a second. I know what Alex, our GM for our Star Wars role-playing game, Justin, would do is probably look toward the RPG, basically, guidelines of how credits work there. Maybe in games, too. Because I've seen people be like, well, it costs about $200,000 to buy an X-Wing, and where are they getting those numbers from? Probably, you know, these games and stuff.
I want to
Yeah,
see just
I-
like a
I-
soda purchase or something like that, something mundane, something cheap. Like I want to see like a menu, and he's having to decide like, do I get the soda with the cane sugar or the soda that doesn't, you know, or the can, and then you can get that kind of perspective of like, okay, we're going from $1 to $1.25.
Well, that person
Right.
would need to order a soda at the, you know, we'll see them ordering a soda at the Boonta Eve Classic, and then we'll see them ordering a soda in like some random, you know, we'll see them buying it like a 6-pack of it, so we can kind of get scale, because, you know, when you buy stuff at events, or, you know, there's certain places where the same thing could be 50 cents, or it could be like a $6, $7 soda.
No, you don't, Auric Fonts. That is insane. That is
that's amazing
Oh
or
my
hilarious?
gosh. I have a long-running spreadsheet figuring out the prices of everything that gets a named price to also figure out conversion rates. That's incredible.
So funny.
That's incredible.
I also
You're the
just
best.
literally
That's so
in a quick
awesome.
Google search, I found a whole article trying to break down the currency of Star Wars and talking about the inflation, and it claims that with what is found out after accounting for inflation, $1 would buy you around 1.44 galactic credits, so it's close.
Oh, it's like the
According to
it's
this
like the
article.
British pound, kind of.
That's
according to
interesting.
this.
Well,
Oh,
you
wait,
have
no,
to imagine.
opposite.
Yeah,
It's kinda like
you
the
have to
Australian
imagine
dollar.
that when you go from planet to planet, that certain similar goods would also, you know, would fluctuate in how much they're worth on those planets as well. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's consistent here. You know, in certain
Totally.
planets, certain resources might be more rare, etc. So.
Even on Coruscant, the upper levels where the higher ups live, things probably cost a lot, like the same goods. But then on the lower
Right.
levels, those people don't make anywhere close to that money. So obviously, the goods offered are going to be different, but the prices would also. So that's just on one planet.
Also,
I would assume.
import taxes, you know, export taxes, you know. So,
I do
pay the
assume
man.
that the kid and the others were killed. How else would Cinta be able to slip away unnoticed? Does make me wonder what Saw's gang will be like.
ooh, maybe she goes
I
and
think-
joins Saw's
Oh
gang.
yeah.
I think it's possible that they were. I think it's possible that they were killed. And then I do want to read this. I was made very uncomfortable with how much of the good guys pointed blasters at children. I also think I was supposed to, but it was a little much for me. I hope that morality gets interrogated.
Mm-hmm.
James was saying that before.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
I
one
think
of them was
it's good.
it that was?
Well, they were all
I was
kind
just gonna
of
ask
complicit.
which rebel was holding the gun to the kid's head when they
I
started
think it
the
was Synthesizing.
kidnapping situation.
Right.
Was it Synthesizing?
Synta's the one
Might have
that
been
killed the
Skeen.
one.
For some reason, I thought it was Skeen too.
Maybe it was. I know at one
I would
point
believe it would be
Synthesizing
Skeen
was
because
there.
then you kind of psychologically set yourself up to not like him, you know.
Mhm.
You know,
I
that
don't
would
know,
be
though.
that would be a good staging moment for that particular scene, you know.
Well, I don't think.
Um,
I think either way, I got the sense that they all knew that was the plan. So like all of them were complicit in what went down. You know,
yeah,
whether
but it's a different
regardless
thing to
of who
actually be the one
assigns.
with the gun against his head, though. You know,
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference.
Kind of. I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference it makes.
Like they all had to be ready
To
to
me.
be that person.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah, but that's logically what you think. But when you're actually watching someone with a gun against a child's head, like just the reaction psychologically to like watching that image, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, of
For
course they
you,
were
yeah.
all putting themselves in that position, but I think it makes a difference. Like, just see that image, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Being the one.
I don't think it made. I don't think it. I think for me, it made me judge the rebels as a group. I don't think it made me, because at that point I wasn't distrusting Skeen yet to begin with. So like, I don't think I was like, oh, Skeen is like the bad one of the group. Like, oh, Skeen is the hardcore one of the group. Like, I don't think it made me single out Skeen. I think it made me think, holy shit, these rebels, their plan is a lot. It's a lot more gnarly than I expected. Like all of them together.
Totally. I'm actually watching.
Yeah,
this scene, Who's
the
got
intense.
I think Cinta is the one where like when the engineer went to, try to save the kid, like let the kid go. I think Cinta shot the engineer.
She did. She popped out from behind a column or
Yeah.
something like that. So that means she wasn't
Yeah.
currently in this
Yep.
situation because they
She-
were still coming back from planting the device.
Yeah. She sort of pulled a Cassian, which is like, okay, if there's any shadow, if there's anything that might get in the way of this, like, I'm not going to deliberate. I'm just going to kill them.
Yeah, it is Skeen, by the way. I just confirmed it. That's kind of got a gun on the kid's head. I guess I don't know. If I'm sitting there on set and I'm like trying to set this, the blocking for the scene, I'd be like, who should I assign to have the gun on the kid's head? I'd probably be like, probably the guy that we're gonna make out to be the bad guy at the end of this episode. That's what I would do if I was blocking that scene. Probably
Well,
wouldn't have the protagonist of the show put the gun. I probably wouldn't do that as a director.
Well,
Something you were just saying really made me just realize the really intense scope of the show, since the very first scene was just like this kind of calm cicadas at dawn or at dusk, it's this kind of nice going from that to the intensity of the kidnapping of the kid, the guns, the shooting. That's a huge distance to travel over the course of one episode. And so I just think that's kind of interesting in terms of the dynamic scope.
I think Nemec served as like a baseline. Nemec kind of makes this whole thing. Nemec serves as like the baseline for an example of what one person in this situation could be like when they're not in that situation of the heist. So like for me actually, because we see Nemec as so kind and open-minded and just whatever, seeing him in that situation, even though he wasn't literally putting the gun to the, like, Nemec had to have agreed that this was the plan. So like Nemec going through this is sort of just what was flashing through my head more than anything, is like, if Nemec is even doing this, like, all these other things, must be possible. And, all these other things, this must be so important. Like, obviously it is important, but like, I guess just
Is there a point of no return that they reach, right? You get to a point where you literally, it's your fight or flight kicks in, you know? So,
yeah.
too. So, like, part of them are just like, they're so tense because they're realizing they put themselves in this very intense situation, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground on this episode.
Big episode.
The more you think about it, the worse the rebels seem. Gorn must have known about the kids. The rebels knew what they were doing. One man's freedom fighter is another one's terrorist. Yes,
Yep.
Yeah.
that's true.
Perspective
Although
is such a great area.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I still think positively of the rebels overall.
Oh,
Or
yeah. I
not
think
necessarily
we all really
positively.
feel for them, you
Yeah,
know?
but
Yeah, I don't necessarily think positively about them. I think positively about the rebellion, and I think like, oh wow, a lot of shit went into it, and yeah, it's just interesting to see.
Do you think there's something that they could have done in this mission that would have made you like flip on that? Like if they killed if they killed the kid,
No.
Like, what do you think? You wouldn't have. You still would have felt positively about the crew if they killed that kid in this episode.
I'm not really thinking positively or negatively. Like that wasn't really a good way to say it. Like I already know how I feel about the rebellion, and so just
Okay.
seeing the origins of the rebellion is to me just like information.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
nothing can change my like feeling about it. It's just extra like layers of like it or not. Like this is what went into it. You know, I'm just kind of letting the story wash over me, I guess. I don't. If they killed the kid, I don't think I would have been like, you know what, I don't like these rebels anymore. I'm out. Like, let's not do this. I don't think I would think that anymore. I don't think I would think that
Interesting.
because that's just how it is. Like, you know, that's just
I
how it
might.
is in Star Wars. That's just what happened.
I don't
I'm willing
know.
to believe. I'm willing to believe that the rebellion doesn't smell like roses. Like I'm willing to believe that the rebellion has many ugly facets for sure. So, I guess it doesn't really change that. Yeah.
Because I feel like that would be a breaking point for me. I don't think I'd start to like the Empire, but I might be like, I think you lost me on that one.
Well,
y'all.
but then a breaking point and Justin, I know you have to go soon. So if you need to just slip out, then you totally
I
can.
might just slip out.
Okay.
and let you all finish.
Yeah.
You can't
Closing
talk for 3
points
hours
from
about
me.
Star Wars,
No, it's
Justin?
okay. It's okay. I was part of the reason we had to start early this round, everybody. Thank you so much for just joining us a little early. I got to jet off to a wedding. But some closing points, great episode, all sorts of things. And do you think we'll ever find Cassian's sister? And I'll leave you at that.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
All
Remember
right.
Cassian's sister?
Yeah.
Cliffhanger.
Do you?
Yeah.
From the first episode?
He has some money
thank you
now
so
he
much,
can
friends.
use.
Yeah.
you know?
Bye,
All right,
Justin.
See you all. See y'all soon.
Okay, so James, first of all, hey K-pop times, good to see you. And also Dyad, I'm gonna put your comment up in just a second because that's really good.
I'm here. I'm getting water.
Okay, so you said like if we see things that are so atrocious, then you might just be like, I'm out. And I understand that you don't mean, oh, I'm on Team Imperial now. But but when you say like, what does that mean? Then you just become sort of agnostic, pacifist, sort of.
No, I mean, I would find it hard at that point to. I mean, they have to when you have a show like this, you need to kind of continuously. They want you to root for a group or a character, etc. Right? It's kind of like what some people have complained about this new Game of Thrones show that's out, where they're like, I don't know who to root for because everyone's so terrible in this show, because everyone's such like a bad person in it. You need to kind of sympathize with the character and be like, oh, I feel comfortable like continues to like wanting to root for this person. It's kind of the phenomenon that people, just give another example, like people explain that with like by the end of Breaking Bad, you almost start to not root for Walter White to a certain extent because he just becomes such an antagonistic force in the show, and he's done so many terrible things that the audience starts to shift their allegiances. And even though so it's kind of like that, but you can't So I think there is a line that they can't, even though they're going to show the dark side of the rebellion, there are lines that they won't allow the characters to cross because they don't want the audiences to stop rooting for them or to think that what they've done is so not worth the outcome, right? And so I think, yes, killing children, I think is one of those lines that if they're writing the show, they're not gonna put that in there because they know that audiences will be won't be able to accept that. They'd be like, okay, there might be some innocent bystanders or things, Imperials that get shot, and we show that, and we feel a little bit torn about that, but we're gonna draw the line on certain things, I think, and I don't think I think that's probably accurate. I don't think that. And for me, I think I would be one of those audience members that they might be worried about, which is like if they did something so if this group of rebels did something so atrocious on screen that I felt like I don't think that was worth the gold that you just got. I don't think that was worth I don't think that what you just did was worth the rebellion outcome here, right? So I think, Ulrich, exactly. I think that we do want to know what the line is, right? So I guess that's what I'm saying. I think there is a line, and I think, but Xanthe, you're thinking that there might not be a line.
No,
for you
I'm
to
not
root
saying
for
that at
them?
all. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
okay,
saying that there's not a
okay.
line. I'm just saying
Okay.
there's nothing they could show me that would make me not agree with their ultimate goal. Like, it's not like I tap out of the
Yeah.
rebellion.
No. You want the Imperials. I meant to get me to stop rooting for this group of people.
I guess rooting is not really ever. I guess rooting isn't part of a way that I think about it.
Well, I would want them to get their comeuppance, I guess is the point. Like, if I saw them doing something so atrocious, even though the outcome of what they're
I mean, most of them died, so.
Yeah, but I would want to see them like not. I don't know. It's a. Yeah, I think we're both saying the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
think
I'm also
Star
saying
Wars,
that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think like one of the big major themes in all of Star Wars is the concept of where this line is or is not drawn, and maybe the primary example that I'll bring up of that is Anakin Skywalker when he decides to go kill all of the people who murdered his who were responsible for the death
Yeah.
of his mother, and that later on in all of his thinking, he constantly refers back, and Padme also talks about it, refers back to that moment where it's like he crossed the line there, and that kind of continues to haunt him throughout the rest of everything. And it seems that it turns out to be that's what probably basically that when the line is crossed, that allows a Jedi to then kind of be pulled into this kind of dark side situation. And so there are moments when Luke Skywalker is maybe like trying to decide whether or not he's going to kill someone in a battle or to fight someone, and he has to say, no, I actually have to step back and not take this fight because if I do something to this person, it's gonna invigorate that part of me that is afraid, that is angry, that is all these things that in the Empire's version of the Force are considered the dark side. And so yeah, I think this show, like, you can say like, yeah, you want to see them get a comeuppance, like, Cinta, her whole family has already been killed. So like, how do you equate things? There is really, like, I don't even think there's one line. I think there's a whole spectrum of lines, and that it changes for every single person. But then the big question is, can you be agnostic in the Empire galaxy? If you just choose not to fight against them, you're doing exactly what they want you to do. Right. There is no such thing as passively, as like being a good guy who's also passive. Not really.
Right.
It's
and when you are a good guy that's being active, you can't be holistically good. I mean, because when it comes down to it, the Imperials that are on the Death Star, like we see, like we just root for that at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's a fairy tale. We get to see the giant Death Star blow up, and we get to see all these people inside it die, right? those
Yeah.
Imperials, as we can see, are not the individual people that that have wronged. I mean, these are cogs in a machine, but they're still individuals, right? And so kind of to your point, Christina, which is like, yeah, Cinta had her whole family killed, but that Imperial that she shot in kind of in cold blood there is not the person that killed her family, right? That is not the person. So she's not getting a 1-for-1 revenge against the people. She gets to hurt the machine and the system and the organization that led to the death of her family, but she doesn't get that ultimate revenge. And so you're like, is that death justified? Yes, and kind of no, right? Because it's not the person that actively did that to her, right? So I guess, yeah, that's that gray area of when you're fighting against a military force or a imperialistic force, you're gonna break some eggs, because you're gonna have all these individuals that have their own individual lives, that have families, that have children, that have all these things, that are.
I don't know if one-on-one like comeuppance or revenge is like necessary or something that they necessarily seek, though I think everyone has impulses, and especially the closer you are to your, trauma or whatever. Like I guess I'm saying, like, I don't think any of them are pure of heart or devoid of
not.
just wanting to act out of rage, and having a cause to support it kind of is like a good, I don't want to say cover, that's not the right word, but like a good punching bag, basically, to let out your aggression or their aggression or, whatever, their pent up feelings. I mean, I guess it's, okay, so I'm going to switch gears to some of these other comments. Retribution, I think it's more about retribution than revenge. What Arikvance says, rooting or empathizing. If I frame it as empathizing, and I ask myself James's question again, like, is there any point at which I would stop empathizing with them? Then
No.
perhaps.
Well, I'll give you an example. I empathize with Walter White throughout the whole series. I end up stopping rooting for his success by the end of the series, even though I empathize with him the entire time. That doesn't mean that I want him to succeed, right? Him personally succeed, right? So I guess that's what I'm saying is like Cassian hasn't done anything in this show that has made me feel like I don't think you deserve to continue living or succeed in this show. Like, right? Like you kind of like at the point you're like, I just want to see Walter White brought to justice, by the end of that show. Like that's what you want. If they did their job right, that's what they want to make you feel as the writers of that show. Is at first you're like, I hope Walter White gets away with selling meth. And by the end of the show, you're like, I hope this bastard gets arrested or killed, right? And so for me, I don't want Cassian to get caught right now. I don't want Cassian to die because he hasn't done anything that made me feel like you deserve some blowback after something you did, right? So I think rooting and empathizing are different. Right now, I'm still rooting for Cassian and I'm still empathizing with him. And I hope that he doesn't do anything, which he won't, because they need to make him continuously be the protagonist and be the person that we end up.
Wait, what do you define do anything?
Like I said, kill a kid, point blank, right? Commit some type of
Like cross
thing on
an
screen.
obvious line.
Yeah, cross a line. That's what we're talking about,
So
right?
killing people. So for you, it's not a line to cross to kill someone whose loyalty you're not exactly sure, like Skeen, but you just don't want to risk it.
Well, it clearly not, since I'm still emotionally rooting for him, right?
Okay.
And so I'll know it when I think that's the point of these emotions with telling a story like this, right? Is that that's part of that's part of the challenge of writing these types of stories, is that you need to create these story beats that if you want the audience to continue to root for your protagonist, then you need to not make that protagonist unlikable and doing things that the audience wouldn't want to root for, So.
Thank you, Dad and Forrest, for bringing up the book that I brought up at the beginning of the stream.
There you go.
When I was Lost Stars, which is about Imperials. Kids grew up to join the Empire. Yep, it's an Imperial love story and lost story. Yes. Okay, what about you, Christina?
Yeah, going directly responding to what you were just saying, James, about so I guess there's a question of, so what is the intention of this show? Is it to make, I mean, of course, there's the, they want the audiences to keep coming back and to love their characters. Um,
Hmm.
but at the same time, one of the things that's kind of unattractive about a lot of different hero things is that the hero is so good that you
Right.
can't identify with them.
Yeah.
We're in a moment in time where a lot of us are feeling a lot of kind of like what Skeen was talking about, where it's like you're so, like, how much power does one have as an individual? What does, like, being a drop in a bucket, how can you hope to change what the bucket's made of? And
Hmm.
so I kind of think it's important to show heroes doing what we'll call bad things, or towing the line, or even crossing the line and saying, oh
Yeah.
wow, that was a mistake, I learned from it. And that lets us know that, okay, like, because whenever you step out on a limb and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be the rebellion, you are not going to do that perfectly 100% of the time, not at all. It's probably a
Right.
huge hit or miss situation anytime you embark on something new like that. And I think that the person who said it the best is at the end of the episode, the assistant of uh
Luthen.
Luthen, or Luthen's assistant, when she's just like, it was never going to be perfect. This is what it took. It's not
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
about like we they crossed the line or not, or one for one. It's just, this is what it took. And that's also kind of like a military thing. It's because they're moving to militarily get away from the empire. And that's kind of the premise of military purpose is, what will it take to be free? What will it take to do this? And that's how the empire legitimizes all the bad things it does. It says,
Yep.
okay, well, this is what it takes to maintain order for
Mm-hmm.
everyone, and
Mm-hmm.
the benefit that everyone receives from that is worth it. Like, even though all of these people are like, having horrible things happen to them, essentially the empire is saying that, well, that's the lesser evil. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't matter. And at the same time, that's how it's like, I guess the rebels, it seems like the show is kind of presenting the idea that they have to also cross the line a little bit in order to
Hmm.
fight
Mm-hmm.
back, and that if they refused, like the Jedi refused to cross the line and fell. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Right.
like what we saw happening for the whole first half, at least, of Star Wars. So we know that the Star Wars universe is saying, okay, well, that's not the way to go. What else can we do? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is just, Star Wars is so many different examples of people trying to do what it takes, and we can see them and decide what works for us.
Yeah.
And the show
Yeah.
is more relatable because it is grittier.
And that's why so many people get angry when they see Luke Skywalker in the sequels
Right.
do some bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because the version they saw in those first three movies are such these crystallized perfect versions of all the heroes that they don't have to get their hands dirty in the way that these characters are now having to get their hands dirty in this show, right?
Yeah.
Or at least we don't see them do that, right? I mean, like we mentioned, like Luke Skywalker blew up millions of people. In the first movie, but they didn't like cut to the stormtroopers and they're like, like one of them's like, no, I have a family. And then the Death Star blows up, right? So,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Remember, I mean, and then that was the scene that Justin and I were on your show, Xanthe. We were like, it turns into magical glockenspiel notes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like all those people are dead. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, yeah, isn't it nice we get to talk about all these things because the show is so good? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like the simplest way to boil it down is like, we were having these discussions about Book of Boba Fett. so,
Although it is something like, no, we weren't. But but I think it's harder for me. I don't feel less favorably about these rebels than I do about bounty hunters, period. Like, I understand there are also cogs, trying to,
No,
make
I
their
think I
living
would
or
feel
whatever,
more
but, like, I feel, but like,
Yeah.
I have trouble connecting with bounty hunters and bounty hunter storylines, whether it's, Mandalorian, whether it's, Din
Right.
or Boba, or just like, I just don't connect with that at all. I don't connect.
Yeah. And they didn't do a very good job
It's not even
of
a
helping
cause.
us.
Yeah. It's
'Cause that's why we were so perplexed throughout Book of Boba Fett, because we're like, isn't he supposed to be a good guy? Why is he not doing enough bad things, right? Like, quote unquote bad things,
I wasn't
Like, we
confused
were
about
like,
that.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think he needs
I
to
The
think-
word
be
integrity comes to mind.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
Boba Fett was just like had a lot of integrity with his values.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing. So it's like, I almost uttered I almost said, well, the Empire has lots of integrity because they totally keep to their values. They make sure everyone's
Yes.
anonymous. All their troopers look the same. And so then when a billion of them die, it's almost like one of them died. It's
Right.
really strange how that works. And I mean, that's a little tangential, but I just like still to this day do not understand how people get so excited about this, like about the troopers, like how, like, I don't know, I see so many bumper stickers of like
Of
some stormtroopers on a car, and I'm like, they're the most anonymous pawns.
Well, I'm
in
curious. Does anyone in
this-
chat have a bumper sticker of stormtroopers, and or are you
Yes.
have you been ever interested in stormtrooper symbolism? Because I can understand
Yeah.
that in a certain way of like, oh, I just see anything Star Wars, but then,
Yeah.
just let us know if it's that or if it's like something deeper. I know some people just
'Cause
like
I think
the
it is
aesthetic.
something deeper. Sometimes. I don't know. Like,
Dyad says, are the cogs in the machine who activated the single ignition reactor on the Death Star and flipped the switches, destroying Alderaan, as responsible as Tarkin who gave the order?
Right. These are
Food
age-old
for thought.
questions about
right.
fascism and war and all this.
This is a not insignificant point as well, Arik Fonts.
Yeah, they
Stormtroopers
are
are good
good
iconographically. And that is something
Yeah.
definitely, I think, in Imperial design period, like the silhouettes are so
Yeah.
singular, like they're so, I
Same
don't
thing
know.
with Boba Fett. Boba Fett
Recognizable,
like
I guess.
is so
Recognizable,
recognizable. Oh yeah.
So when I asked my mom this question, she said that she thinks that that the appeal is strength in numbers.
Oh.
Something to do with not being alone, being one of a group of many that are also like you. And I think the fact that she answered my question immediately without thinking that way, meaning she,
Did
it
you
didn't
just
take her
text her
any
now?
time. No, I
Okay.
asked her this like a year ago, and I've been pondering it all the time since. But yeah, and because we all live in different areas and have different cultural things, but she does kind of represent a cultural group in terms of the United States that's pretty different from the one that I personally am in. And so I also I really enjoy insight of anybody who's just kind of culturally different than me, so that I can understand that different perspective, and how, okay, like I see a stormtrooper as like somebody who probably can't hit the target. Like, why would you why would you pick like the person who is really not good at their job to be like an icon, and at the same time someone else has a completely opposite perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I guess it would be if to most people's like perspective, I guess it's similar as like, why would you put like Jar Jar Binks on your car, right? Like a lot of people would be, that he's a little bit more. I don't agree actually with this. I'm not a Jar Jar Binks hater, but lots of people hate him. So for some reason, there's like a lot of people that drink the Kool-Aid on the Stormtroopers for sure.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
stormtroopers are just like a particularly jarring example because what's the worst you can say about Jar Jar? That he's inept, that he's silly, that he's like, ridiculous, clumsy, whatever. Just that I don't like him in my Star
Also
Wars.
wonderful.
But with stormtroopers, it's just like there are so many layers that you can. It's like.
Well, they have a lot of
are
different
you-
depictions. I don't think they were intended to be non-threatening in the original movie, but they came off that way just like almost accidentally. Like I think they were supposed to be threatening in the first movie. Do you think that they were supposed to be like, because people don't take them seriously, but it's almost like it's a meta thing that people don't take them seriously. It's like they
Yeah, I agree
noticed
with
that
Well,
in the movies they did a
people you
really
know
bad
don't take them
job.
seriously.
Yeah, because the thing is, I don't think I grew up not taking them seriously. I think it wasn't until I don't even know when it dawned on me that people don't take them seriously, and then I started kind of adopting that
Right.
as well, because I think I did take them seriously before.
I think it's just people in the 90s watching a movie from the 70s, and it's like the action just wasn't as convincing back then, to be quite honest. I mean, like they miss on purpose, and they didn't shoot it in a way that made it, come off the way that you would have made that happen in a movie in the 90s. I mean, I feel like these memes didn't really start to blow up until movies, I think back in the 70s, people were probably watching it like, what, those are scary stormtroopers, so I don't
I
know.
like what
Say more about this.
Alfia?
Oh yeah,
Is that how
I don't know if we've ever pronounced your name correctly. People didn't take them unseriously until the late 90s. I know my fandom history well.
Was that when the Clone Wars series came out? Because I
No,
feel like
that was
in the
later.
Clone Wars series there was just a constant all the characters were making fun of how bad the stormtroopers were. Like that was a consistent. I think that I can just picture Anakin and Ahsoka joking about it.
Clone Wars was in the 2000s.
Right, okay.
So Andor plays slightly differently in Northern Ireland, for example. I guess I should read this in order. Living in a country that was occupied by the real stormtroopers, you mean the ones that the Star Wars stormtroopers were inspired by, does taint my view a bit. Similarly, Andor plays slightly differently in Northern Ireland, for example.
That makes I really like that point.
If you can elaborate that, I'd be very interested to hear. So stormtroopers. Yeah. I think I took them seriously because, I don't think I took them any less seriously than I already took the whole 70s-ness of the OT to begin with. It's sort of kind of all, I didn't take Luke seriously. I didn't take anyone seriously. And because of that, it was easier to adopt that as like, okay, a different setting, 70, let's put myself on like this other setting. And then everything filtered through that setting. I could see it more clearly or engage with it more clearly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Need to clarify, since that I mean militaries with dubious ethics, not those of all countries.
Yeah, I think we missed that first comment from the Masked Jedi.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see.
whereas-
I think
yeah.
people get sucked into the military from poverty, desperation, wanting the fellowship, while Tarkin was a believer. Need to clarify that I mean militaries with dubious ethics, not those of all countries. Now, I'm curious how one would know the difference.
It's really tough, but in either case, whatever the ethics of the military are, I like the point of just I don't know, I do remember, or just a lot of people who are in a poverty situation. It's like, well, where am I gonna? You're 18, you're 17, you're 18. Like, it's time for you to move out of your family's house because your parents, you're seeing how hard it is for them to continue to provide for you. It's like, what? I'm gonna go to the military because that's literally the only option sometimes of somebody who's like, hey, if you literally just come apply and you're somewhat competent, we will find a job for you here. And that is kind of I mean, if I understand correctly, that is for example, I think a lot of people at the end of the Great Depression, that generation, there was a lot of military joining because people just didn't have very much. And so it was like, okay, if you didn't have anything and you wanted to get something or just, not be dead weight, join the military. I'm not sure if it's like that now. And also, at the same time, you know, from the Imperial standpoint, the stormtroopers are amazing. They're put through such rigorous training sometimes, like, and they're considered the elite. So there's many different sides of what a stormtrooper is and what they represent, and the person behind the mask. Many different versions of why that person joined in the first place. And they drafted too, right? Like in some of these situations, like in the Death Star situation, that was probably a draft, right?
By then, I'm not sure. I'm not sure because I think people. Let's see. I know that there was a draft in the early times of the Stormtroopers. By the Death Star, there may have been a draft, but I also think, like lore masters, if Dyad is still in the Force, is still in chat. I think being assigned to the Death Star would have been an honor for some people.
Absolutely. It was like the top secret project. It was like this thing that there's not even a word for until it comes out. You're going to be there. Like, you can't tell anyone even what you're doing.
Yeah. Another aspect of being like drafted into the military or the stormtrooper-ness goes back to the idea of being on the bottom and kind of climbing your way up or whatever. So like, I think that applies to the military as well. Like my brother joined the Army and was like very excited about the money that you get when joining the Army. And, you know, this was a while ago and he was very like proud of it at first, but also he didn't feel that he had many options at the time. So he did that. He kind of hated it, but like he had to finish, you know, his time that he had signed up for. And the only way that he could sort of improve his situation was to train to be an even more specialized rank. You know what I mean? Like, so then then he stayed in the Army, but like in this different role. So wasn't just infantry anymore. He would, you know, did other stuff. He was like in EOD and so that became like just a way to even stay in longer, you know, to be even more specialized than you were before, rather than just getting out. So it is hard to it can be very hard to. I can see how people in the Imperial Army or whatever, Imperial people, just stay in and want to climb the ranks. Like I understand Cyril, Dedra, like all of that is so great to see in this show.
Yeah, it's in many ways the point of the stormtroopers being as faceless and part of this evil machine and so simply portrayed in the original movies was George Lucas's aim, which is like, and that's what fantasy can do. It can shine a light on reality in a way that doesn't trigger a bunch of people's emotions because you're not like showing and you can portray things as evilly as you want to make a statement about, because people aren't gonna be like, what, you can't portray the U.S. Army like that, you know, etc. Right? But you can make a point about the U.S. Army, which is what he was trying to do, by showing the stormtroopers as this part, like showing the complete evil side of it, right? And showing like this is what ultimately imperialism looks like, right? Big evil, right? Big, you know, fairy tale level evil military, right? And that's kind of what the point of those movies were. Like, here you go, here it is. Here's the big evil galactic empire, and you know, you can do that because it's a fake world, right? And you can show that. What's kind of interesting is now we're getting to see like the nuance of that purposefully unnuanced world, right? Which is fun now. Like, welcome to postmodernism, right? Like, that's what this is.
That's great. I also just, when you said welcome to postmodernism, it did make me kind of think of just generally art history, how there was World War II, which was just so devastating and insanely ridiculous, emotionally speaking, we'll just say for the entire arts and cultural world. And, you know, just, you know, it's kind of an obvious statement. And then after that, kind of, that is there was so much complexity and confusion there that did lead eventually to the simplicity of modernism. And now that we've experienced that simplicity of modernism where there's no nuance, put in quotes, now it's great that I like that word what Alfia just said about Star Wars has moved from pure escapism to grittier, more real stories, all the better for it, tying into what you just said, James, about nuance. I think it's great. Like, people tell me, they're like, who's interested in Star Wars now? And I'm like, it's the best time to be interested in Star Wars. Like, finally, we're getting to actually answer and all talk about these really detailed questions that are relevant to our world.
Yeah.
And you can see.
And you don't sound like a
this,
psycho
this
for
could
doing
either
it.
apply.
You know, like
Exactly,
the joke in Clerks is that they're talking like this about something that was so simple like Star Wars, right? But now the shows themselves are kind of talking about this, you know? So.
And because it's a galaxy far, far away, sometimes I'm like, I wonder if they're talking about like the United States versus the rest of the world. I wonder if they're talking about like British colonialism back in the day. I wonder if they're talking about like just within the United States, like the division of the rural versus central areas. You can basically, and then we were just, and Alfia mentioned Ireland. And so I think you can basically stamp this template onto any struggle or situation, even just within your own brain.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It's like the mole man from Kenobi that has like a southern accent, and he's like all for the Empire. Remember? He's like, nothing wrong with a good little order, right? It's just like, I wonder who you're talking about with those guys, right? Like that character, right?
That fascinates
me. He's like literally driving a pickup truck. He's like, nothing wrong with like a little bit of order in my empire, right? That guy's got a Stormtrooper bumper sticker for sure. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Although it is like a little unfortunate when the analogy is so spot on that it is, that the caricature becomes, anyway, whatever. But
Too
yeah,
real, right?
I wish
not
there
only
were
that, but
more accents to use.
Right. I, like, because I think of all the people who like drive pickup trucks or have this, or live in the global south, you know, or not global south, live in the south. So we're not talking about live in the south or these places, you know, are.
Well, to be
in these
fair,
cave
that
places.
accent is not just part of the South. everybody I grew up with in upstate New York sounds just like that, and they all drive pickup trucks. Okay. So.
Well, anyway.
I think it's more about rural rather than
Rural.
centralized. City versus non-city, Coruscant versus Outer Rim.
Yeah. My grandparents lived under Nazi occupation, real stormtroopers, and I now have friends who see the IRA, Irish Republic Army, as freedom fighters, and others see them as terrorists.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you know when it's happening in real time? Like, we all know that the Empire is bad, but we got to watch how many years of stories of the Empire, and so we have a lot of perspective. But
also a lot of these things happen, or a lot of these categorically bad things have elements of them that are not all bad, and that's what draws people into those aspects that are not all bad. You know what I mean? Like, that's how
totally,
you know, that's how in politics, people running on certain platforms, squeezing other things in, you know, enough things to lure in people, but like, you know, even, or, you know, just the way that you can stuff bills with like random stuff, and just having, if it were all bad, if anything were all bad, it would be easy to reject it. But like having some part of it that's alluring, or some part of it that's helpful, like in a short-term way or whatever, that's what makes things very tricky. Very tricky, because not all bad could be good.
Yeah.
But the whole thing overall is it worth it, is like the question. And, you know, or are you thinking beyond that one thing? Or I don't know. It's
just.
My dad lived under the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. And so that was like sort of, you know, like a communist like revolution, you know, where they wanted to make everyone equal, you know, sort of like make everyone equal. And like, so they took everyone, you know, made them, marched them out to camps, in rural camps, and made them do labor, and weren't allowed to have any of their old culture and clothes and song, music and books. They gave everyone's names. They made it year 0. So like my dad doesn't even know when he was actually born. So like the goal was like high-minded in a way, one could say, from a certain point of view, but like everything that happened was like absolutely atrocious, of course.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And to kind of circle back in terms of like the meta level of like what they're writing and what their aims are as writers and also as contributors to a franchise, right? That needs to maintain some sense of like emotional through line and spirit of like who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, right? Like I don't think they'll ever make a show that's like purely like, I don't know, like Imperial sympathy. Like they'll never make a show that's just like, let's see how good these people have. Like they'll always, I think the spirit and the message of these movies will still end up rooting for the rebels in some way, and will still end up hoping the Imperial gets their comeuppance, right? Like I think there's a level of the brand they have to maintain. Like I'm curious what they will show about the actual alliance. Like in Rogue One, they had the convenience of Saw Gerrera's crew being the example of the rebels that go too far, right? That's who they were. Like that's the purpose they serve in that story, right? You see a little bit of how it's a little rougher on the edges with Andor shooting that guy. You know, they were going to take out Jin's dad through the scope, but they never did something like torture somebody with a crazy squid monster, right? Like they never did. Like that was the whole Boar Gullet scene, like to me serves the purpose of showing this is how off the deep end
I still
Saw
don't know
Gerrera
how
has
to
got.
interpret this war gullet stuff.
I think that's what it is. It's like he's literally torturing people for information, right? And that's what they're trying. I think that's what they're going for with that scene. Is like Saw is off the deep end and he's gone too far, and that's why that whole crew doesn't make it out alive, but the Alliance gets out, and they like. So I'm curious how they're gonna handle the Alliance, because I think they still need to land on like the Alliance as an organization is someone that we need to be behind, you know? And so we talked about these lines that we think that they could or couldn't cross or whatever. So I'm curious at how they're going to portray the Alliance throughout this season and throughout this show, because I think
Or if there'll be an alliance yet.
I feel like I think they've said they bring the show is going to bring it all the way up to Rogue One.
Yeah.
So there definitely will be the Alliance in this show.
Yeah, but whether it's this season or next season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, you know, it is weird. They mentioned the Alliance earlier in this season. They said They used the word Alliance.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember.
And it's weird because like canonically they're not supposed to like exist.
Yeah.
And even Alex at Star Wars Explained
A.
was like, yeah, it was like interesting. Anyway. Yeah.
So I guess this is like kind of a good thought to sort of end with, which is Arik Font's saying, I want a less gritty Star Wars that has as much vision and capable storytelling as Andor. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want both.
I want that too.
Yeah. I want that, and I want this as well, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I personally am enjoying Andor, and I tweeted about this, so sorry if you've already seen my thoughts about this, but like, I think a lot of people are focusing on the fact that it is dark and gritty. And it's so good because it's dark and gritty and realistic. And I don't think that's why it's so good. I think that just happens to be what it is. I think it's so good because of the vision and capable storytelling. I normally don't like dark and gritty shows. That's not what I gravitate toward at all. So like, I don't like it because it's a gritty drama. I like it It just happens to be a gritty, dark and gritty drama. But I would love if like the same sort of vision could be applied to, you know, less gritty stories as well. I would like that as well. I would like capable storytelling as much as possible. As much as possible. Ideally, please.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
You'd think that could translate to all different aesthetics.
You'd hope, but then, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. With Ahsoka, with Star Wars is big enough for all types of stories, maybe even a comedy. Absolutely. And comedies are great. I still think comedies can have vision and like an amazing story. Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like,
Yeah,
I don't think this level, this bar, this caliber has to be applied to dark and gritty stories. I think this can and should be in more places as well. Sure, in a comedy.
I think we said, I don't know if we said this on this stream or whether it was just us chatting, but it's like here on planet Earth, right now, 3 nerds are talking about Star Wars on the internet. Somewhere else, someone's getting married. So, right? Somewhere somebody is crying their eyes out and having the worst day of their life right now. In Ukraine, there's terrible things happening, right? And people dying and people, and, right now somebody fell down a flight of stairs but is okay, and now everyone's laughing at that because it's really silly and goofy, right? So there's variety in life. So the idea that we have this really gritty, dramatic series, and then we have like Jar Jar Binks dodging a bunch of orbs of, which
I freaking love.
Yeah, and then like shooting
Boomas.
somebody accidentally. I mean, that's how the world is, right? So why would it not be the case that we'd have goofy shit happen in this galaxy, and also some dramatic shit happening too, right? So.
Absolutely. And the first rom-com does need to be Thronto.
It totally does.
Clear.
Absolutely.
There's pretty much no discussion needed there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be what if, dude? What if Ahsoka is like a secret Thrawn romantic thriller where it's actually like they're setting him up to be like the big villain, but he's actually the love interest. And that's why Ahsoka's looking for him. He's like, "Where's Grand Admiral Thrawn?" Because because everybody's interested romantically in Thrawn. That would be funny, wouldn't it?
Thrawn wouldn't notice. Yeah.
Thrawn wouldn't notice.
Thrawn wouldn't notice.
You don't think so? And he's like completely
Unless
like
Eli told him.
He's like oblivious to how much everybody wants him.
Yeah, he would be. Yeah.
That would be really funny. Like Ezra, Ahsoka, all of them are Sabine. They're all like trying to fight each other so they can get Thrawn.
Ooh, I wonder if Thrawn could get the Darksaber. Just adding exciting options since we're clearly
options noted.
What if what if Ezra and Thrawn have been on that ship for a millennia or however long, and when they finally find them, they're like coupled?
That's what Christina and I think is happening.
You both.
We talked about
you
it
both
last
think
night.
that's
Yeah.
They did a Passengers. Is that what that movie is? Right.
I don't know what that movie
where
is.
it's Chris Pratt and Scarlett Johansson, and they're stuck on a ship together, and they end up like whatever. So that's Thrawn and Ezra. They created a cabin fever relationship
of a sort, of a certain kind. Anyway,
that would be exciting.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to say, if you are enjoying Andor, or you enjoy the storytelling, I recommend the 6 canon Thrawn books, because I feel similar vibes there. Not because dark and gritty, but because of the complexity and cohesiveness and deftness of the storytelling.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Similarly, I think the other really exciting thing about those books is just that you get to hear a lot of first-person points of view where you're inside someone's brain
Yes,
and
that's my
understanding
favorite.
how they think. And that really is a game changer for understanding a lot of motivations behind all sorts of different characters.
Yep. Oh, yes, including Arinda Price, including Imperials, but not very many Imperials, but just like a few though. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, Christina, we usually end stream by all playing or singing some music at the same time. So
Yeah.
we'll be back next week. I think we might be on a different day. James, confirm with me. I think you said Friday next week.
I don't remember. We'll talk.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll talk. But yeah, can't wait to talk episode 7 of Andor, and thank you for joining us for another Band Batch chat. See you next week.
Your dirty work no more. I don't want to do your dirty work no